hard to break us. As a matter of fact, you ain't going to do it.
Open look, Boaz, he hits it!
What a play called by Tom Izzo in that timeout.
I was 7 years old watching a football game by myself, and I saw those winged helmets come out of the tunnel, and I was hooked at that point.
Kane in Chicago! Oh my God! Kane with the overtime winner!
Jahmyr Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
He drives, lobs to JD for a jam.
You play real good, you start. You don't play as good, you work your way back in. It's the American way, except America has gotten soft. But that is the American way. That's the way it works.
This is the 6'6" Kane Cunningham.
Jameson Williams, he's got it! Touchdown, Lions!
Good morning and welcome to X's and Bros. Jim Miller here filling in for Matt Shepard as he gets some well-deserved vacay. He'll be back Monday, and he'll be ready for the grind of the NFL season. Plus, college is cranking up. Plus, we've got plenty of preseason action underway. Week 2 already, the Lions, they've already adjusted their schedule as they are going to start Josh Dobbs against the Lions in their second preseason action. Looks like Laporta's out with a hip, the tight end. We're going to get plenty in the tight ends as we roll along during this show. Got a great show in store for you. Filling in for the rest of hour one, Todd Haley, former NFL head coach. He's going to take us around the league, so it'll be fun to talk to Todd again. We got together for the Michigan Sports Network over the summer. Really get our thoughts on both the AFC and the NFC. Could be tough for the Detroit Lions. Can they make the playoffs? Already you got 7 teams on the NFC side of it. AFC side is going to be pretty tight as well with the return of Patrick Mahomes. They should be able to make a little ruffle out there in the AFC West. And, of course, last year, you look at the NFC West, they had 3 teams. A lot of people are thinking Dallas could make it in this year on the NFC East side of things. And, again, it's going to be tight. There's only 2 teams last year from the NFC North were able to pop that position to get into the playoffs. Obviously, the Bears won the division, and, of course, the Green Bay Packers. But Detroit definitely should make it interesting in a wide-open NFC North. So we'll talk hot and heavy on the Detroit Lions. We'll talk Chicago. We'll talk Green Bay Packers as well. And how about Minnesota? They already made their decision at quarterback. They're going to be going with Kyler Murray over J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan product. And, of course, you got other teams out there. They still have yet to decide a starting quarterback. Why is it taking so long? One of the teams was on display last night, the Las Vegas Raiders, as they played the Houston Texans. Mendoza, he's competing with Kirk Cousins. Supposedly that competition is still open, according to Clint Kubiak. It's too long. Everybody knows Kirk Cousins is going to be the guy, and whenever Mendoza is ready, he should be named the starter. But he did play a championship caliber defense last night in the Houston Texans. Many likened them in the AFC South to unseat the Jacksonville Jaguars. Then in hour 2, we're going to open up the discussion. Of course, we'll hear from you. You can give us a call. You can text us as well. I'll throw out that number momentarily. And then in the final hour, we'll have Dan Bartholomew, a new athletic director for Michigan State, comes with a lot of experience and did great things with the Western Michigan Broncos. Now Michigan State looking forward to the 2026 college season. Of course, they've got their new head coach and Pat Fitzgerald. We'll talk a little Michigan side. They've got a new direction as well and a new era with Kyle Whittingham. So we'll talk a little college football, and we'll talk certainly plenty on Michigan State sports with Dan Bartholomew, newest athletic director for the Michigan State Spartans. It's always interesting come preseason action time. You got all these owners and the coaches, the way they circumvent. I feel for the fans because you're paying full boat for the tickets, right? You buy the season tickets, the preseason's basically included when you're a season ticket holder. They're charging you a full boat, and you don't even get to see the starters. Last night, that was kind of on its display, as I mentioned. But you've got all these teams that have these cross scrimmages. So Saturday night, I'm going to call the Chicago Bears versus Cincinnati down in Cincinnati. That's who the Lions played in their first preseason contest, the Cincinnati Bengals. But the Bears are having a cross scrimmage. They had a cross scrimmage yesterday. So, of course, neither the Bengals or the Bears are going to be playing their starters, right? So during these cross scrimmages where coaches can, supposedly they want to script everything, right? It is true. You can get more done in a cross scrimmage practicing than you can in a preseason game. For example, if you're just playing a preseason game, it's just how the ball bounces, how the punts go and the kickoffs and all that. You may never even see a goal line situation. You may never get down in the red zone to have a goal line situation, or say a 2-minute drill, say right before the half. Maybe the way the clock works, you're just running your regular offense. You don't really get to do a 2-minute drill, or maybe your team doesn't even have the opportunity to do a 2-minute drill. But these cross scrimmages offer these coaches the ability to script their practice. So where was I? I think I was up doing the Baltimore Ravens camp. They were cross-scrimmaging the LA Rams with Aaron Donald, and then when they came to town, and they got a lot done. Their third down period, their blitz period. John Harbaugh talked to the opposing coach, said, "Hey, we need to work on our blitz pickups. Let's go heavy on the blitz period." So you're working on blitz pickups. Goal line period, as I mentioned, short yardage is another one where you can go full pads, and you can script it, but you can hit full boat. And you can script as many plays as you want. Say you wanted a 4th and 1 situation on the 1 yard line down in the goal line, you could run that play or work on several plays for, say, 15 plays, where the ones will get half of them, then you bring in the twos, and it's all live. And so it's just working on that specific situation. And now when the coaches do that, they won't play their starters, and they just use it. Oh, starters got their work this week. We'll heavy load them on the work week, and that way we can keep them out of the preseason game, because every coach is paranoid about getting the starters hurt. And why shouldn't they? I mean, it can derail your season pretty quickly. I'm sure there's not a lot of Lions fans that are upset that Jared Goff is not playing this game, your second preseason game. Why should they? If he goes down, pretty much the Lions season would be over. I think we've seen that happen to several teams the last 2 years in the NFL alone, because it was 2024, I believe 58 starting quarterbacks went down. So you better have a backup ready to go, and they better be able to win at least 4 games off of the bench. Go 2-2 minimum in a month period for you to get your starter back. Last year, I believe it was 64. It was even higher. You had a higher percentage of backup quarterbacks that had to play. Again, some guys can be done for the entire year, and some guys are only out a couple of weeks. But if you're able to navigate that, and that's why you always say it's really your best 53. When we talk about a 53-man roster, it has to be the best 53, or the right 53 is really the more appropriate word. The right 53 doesn't have to be the best 53, because you got to have the right guys that can come off in a stretch of 4 or 5 games where they've got to play extremely well for you to navigate that stretch. Because when you play these teams, it really doesn't matter. Everybody's talking about, oh, look at the schedule. It's so hard. It doesn't really matter, because the way the ebbs and flows of the season go, and where injuries hit other teams, it's when you play them. And if they're hurt, some teams they're hurt coming out of camp. Some teams get hurt later in the season. Then everybody talks about the bye week. Oh, we need the bye week. And sometimes it's at the right time where you can get guys healthy in order for you to push forward for the rest of the year. And that's where it's got to be. Could be like for the Bears last year, they got hurt, and they're hurt again this year coming out of the preseason at the safety spot, right? They just signed Kobe Bryant from the Seattle Seahawks. They signed him for $40 million. Already he goes down. Here he's a world champion. He's expected to bring along Dylan Thieneman, the safety for the Chicago Bears, and already their secondaries in a mess. But last year, the Bears were able to get by because they had Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who they signed, who played for Dennis Allen down in New Orleans. And he was able to step in and fill in nicely. And the Bears ended up leading the league in takeaways, which very rarely is a statistic you can replicate. So it's going to be interesting how it settles. So we're going to get heavy into the NFC North, as, again, former NFL head coach Todd Haley will join us in just a few moments. And, of course, we're going to hear from you as well. You can text us here at the X's and Bros show. The number to text here is, or you can call the line as well, 866-838-4843, or you can text us as well. We'll get into some of your thoughts in the second hour. Want to get heavy into the tight end position, but let's come back. Let's give it a little preseason recap action. Last night is Mendoza. He got an opportunity last night against a championship caliber defense in the Houston Texans. Of course, San Francisco kind of put it on the LA Chargers. Herbert only got about, I believe, 3 snaps, and Brock Purdy only had, I think, 1 throw for like 29 yards. So very sparingly will the starters play as the preseason rolls along. So we are going to continue to roll along. Again, want to hear from you. We've got great guests that are going to join us this morning. Dan Bartholomew in the final hour is going to join us. Of course, we'll have Todd Haley when we return right here on X's and O's. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard. So keep it right here on the huge Michigan Sports Network.
In my pro football days, the key to winning was a great game plan. It's no different when it comes to your retirement. Hi, this is Mitch Lyons from Mitch Lyons Wealth. Is stock market turbulence making you question whether your plan is okay? Do the ups and downs of your retirement account give you the jitters? Are you protected against the next market downdraft? As you approach retirement, you're entering the retirement red zone. Like in football, the game changes in the red zone. There's less time for mistakes, and you need to see your blind spots and protect yourself. Is your retirement safe? Let's find out today. Let's create a game plan together that will protect, grow, and win retirement. You've worked hard to save what you have. Let's make sure you keep it. 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is worth a 15-minute call to make sure you've done all that you can to protect your retirement. Call Mitch Lyons Wealth today at 844-867-8335. That's 844-867-8335. Or go to MitchLyonsWealth.com. Investment advisory services are offered through MLW Advisory Services, DBA Mitch Lyons Wealth, a state-registered investment advisor.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at FreddieThePizzaMan.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit FreddieThePizzaMan.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI, thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to my good friend Shep. The huge show is coming up later today at 3, right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to X's and Bros. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard, keeping the seat warm. How about behind the curtain there, Brett Hayes keeping me seeing how coachable I am. You can text us at Text Sports Radio 221,000. So still working out the glitches there. And as promised, this hour we are going to go out to the guest line. We got together over the summer, trying to give you a good idea how it's going to shake out in both the AFC and the NFC side of things. So let's welcome in former NFL head coach, a good friend of mine. Always good to say hello to Todd Haley. So Todd, Jim Miller here. Good to have you so early in the morning. I know you're getting ready to roll. You're getting ready to do your regular spot on Sirius XM NFL radio, but we thank you for giving us a few moments of your day and like to get your early thoughts on preseason. We saw it last night. Supposedly Clint Kubiak says there's still a quarterback competition out there for the Las Vegas Raiders as Mendoza throws a pick six. Good to have you, Todd.
What a start. Pick six, Jim. You're a quarterback. You can't start a segment like that. No, great to be here. Looking forward to it. You don't get to see a lot of guys. I was hoping to see more guys, but, every time they showed shots of Max Crosby with no pads on, all the different players that didn't play last night. But we did get to see Fernando. And, again, just like I said last week when he played better, I think last week than he did this week, but you can't overrate the preseason. It's just another step in the process for a young quarterback trying to play the hardest position in football. So some good, some bad, some ugly, but I like the kid. I like his demeanor. He feels right to me. I mean, he's bigger than I thought he would look out there on the field. So, like I said, you can't put too much into it. We're not at practice. We're not watching, every rep that's happening. But as far as Clint Kubiak saying it's a competition, I can't see the Raiders starting the season any other way than Kirk Cousins out there playing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to get into that's my pet peeve too, Todd, about some of these cross scrimmages are really, it's a way for coaches to circumvent not playing a player, or the starters, I should say, in a preseason game, but I'll get to that momentarily. Why is it taking these coaches so long to decide their starting quarterbacks? I like that Kevin O'Connell already made the choice. He made the decision. Kyler Murray's going to be our starter. He beats out J.J. McCarthy. Everybody seemed to know it. Nobody's got a problem with it. But yet Cleveland, with new head coach Todd Monken, they've got a competition going on between Deshaun and Shedeur Sanders, and Dylan Gabriel's just cast to the side. He's not even in it, for God's sake, or even like Clint Kubiak to make the statement that the Raiders competition is still open. Why is it taking so long to make this decision for your starter?
I don't know, Jim, and I'm 100% on the same page. I mean, you played the position. You've been around locker rooms and teams, as a player and as an analyst. So, that everybody on that field generally knows who gives them the best chance to win, all the players. But you also know that in this day and age, with one practice a day, half of them not even in pads, a bunch of them walkthroughs during this time of year in preseason, that there's not enough reps for one guy, let alone two. And like the guy who's going to be starting the season needs those meaningful reps. I talk about this all the time. Let's say there's a 12-play period, team 11 on 11. Half of those are going to be runs, right? So that's 6 plays you're down to. You might have a couple screens you want to get in, little, a quick screen outside screen, or a delayed screen to a running back, tight end, whatever it is. You're not going to grade a quarterback on those plays. Like you are on a deep clear cross concept or something where you got to actually read the defense, or third down play. So, now you're down to 3 or 4 meaningful plays. And if you're trying to split those up, that's reps the guy that's eventually going to be starting does not get. So I don't get it in Cleveland. I applauded Kevin O'Connell, and we say that was a competition, but I mean, how much could one player separate themselves from the other during that short amount of time? So that's what I feel about Cleveland. If it's even close, if nobody has just jumped up and said, hey, I'm so much better than the other guy, why? To me, it just makes sense. I mean, if you have Deshaun Watson on the roster, I mean, just say he's the starter. and let them get ready to play the season. Let the receivers get ready to, get more comfortable and create more chemistry. Let the offensive line and center understand his cadence even better. Let the running backs understand the ball handling and how he goes about his business of picking up pressures and things like that. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And in LA, I don't feel like it's a competition. I don't know if that's just, a young coach saying something to make it feel like that. I mean, I think everybody on that team probably believes Kirk Cousins is their leader, at least here to start the season. So I don't know. Make that decision fast. Don't let it play out.
Yeah, and you mentioned how the reps have gone down. I mean, no more 2-a-days. I mean, that was a luxury back in the day. You'd get a morning practice, legitimately 2.5 hours, an afternoon practice, legitimately 2.5 hours. In the morning, it was more run, play, action geared. Afternoon was all pass geared, and I mean, you're literally losing all those reps for guys to get ready. And I kind of laughed, Todd, this week because I'm going down to call the Bears-Cincinnati game. They had a cross scrimmage yesterday, and of course the Bears and the Bengals announced, no starters are playing on Saturday. They got all their work in, so they're going to play all the backups. And I laughed this week because did you see what happened between Dallas and New Orleans, who had a cross scrimmage? They ended up having 8 fights. And I've talked to some veterans who are like, they're sick of the cross scrimmages because they know what the coaches are doing. They're getting in all their work, and they view it as a preseason game, the way it's structured. And so they get 8 fights. It was almost the movie Bull Durham. Remember when Kevin Costner forced a rain out by putting on the sprinklers? That's essentially what Dallas did. They got in so many fights that basically they called the practice and couldn't get anything done.
Yeah, and I hate to always agree with you, Jim, but I've been talking about this. These joint practices, to me, are a safety net for coaches now, because if you lose, and we're losing a lot of guys. I mean, guys have gotten hurt, significant injuries in these joint practices, and but it's much easier when it happens in a practice than you play a guy in a game, in a preseason game, and then all of a sudden you have to stand at the podium and you got everybody in the world saying, "Why were you playing him?" But I think it's kind of a comfort blanket. How those. I mean, I don't know if you were ever involved in those as a player, but you've seen enough of them to understand these teams are still going through their install. They're not game planning for a joint practice. They're just trying to get everything in that you need to get in. And situational football specifically, whether it's short yardage goal line, backed up, coming out, red zone, obviously third down. Now the players enjoy it because they get to go against somebody else, but those fights aren't generally happening in a game situation in a stadium. Yes, we've seen a couple over the years, but it's not like these melees we're seeing in practice. So to me, I just think it's overrated unless, the only benefit I ever saw in them as a coach was, I'm with the Steelers. We're a 3-4 defense, so we're practicing 3-4 rules, for everybody. And if the Buffalo Bills want to come to Latrobe and have a joint practice, they're a 4-down team. Okay, great. Now we get to cover all the 4-down stuff. That's the biggest benefit to me, other than the players get to go against a different body, and a different person across the field for them. So overrated. I think it's an easy way for coaches to not play people in the preseason. And you and I both know you need to play. Unless you're Aaron Rodgers that has 20 years under your belt or whatever, there's certain or Patrick Mahomes coming off a significant injury. I get all those things, but you need to play to get ready. And the joint practices, when coaches get up there and say the company line, hey, these are we get more production out of these than we do a preseason game. I don't buy it always.
Yeah, the benefit is like what Todd just mentioned there. If you're going against a different scheme, say you're a 4-3 team and you want to work 3-4 rules and you're, say, scrimmaging the Pittsburgh Steelers in a cross scrimmage, that benefits you because it's a different look that you're preparing for. You're doing what Todd talked about, your 3-4 rules for blocking assignments and all that, and it's entirely different to get in a new scheme, and you are getting in some good work. We've got plenty more to come. Let's hit the break here. We'll come back more with Todd Haley, former NFL head coach. We'll be back right after this.
Summer's freshest flavors and unbeatable value are waiting for you at Meijer. Enjoy juicy red seedless grapes for just $1.99 a pound. Fire up the grill with fresh from Meijer boneless pork loin chops. Buy one, get one for $1. Locally grown blueberries are plump with summer sweetness and are only $3.99 a pint. And crisp, colorful green bell peppers are just 79 cents each. From backyard cookouts to weeknight dinners, you can always count on Meijer for good life quality at real low prices. Exclusions apply. See the Meijer app for details.
Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu.
Mitch Lyons here, founder of Mitch Lyons Wealth, where we create your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. I'm here with Tiger legend Kirk Gibson, who we are proud to support and partner with on the newly opened Kirk Gibson Center for Parkinson's Wellness.
Thanks, Mitch. We appreciate your support, and we are excited to have recently opened the center in Farmington Hills. It provides exercise therapy and educational programs that are helping the Parkinson's community. Just like Mitch Lyons Wealth helps improve the quality for their clients' retirements, this center helps improve the quality of life for people with Parkinson's.
And Gibby, the best part of all is that access to the center is available to the Parkinson's community free of charge, right?
That's right, absolutely free of charge for people with Parkinson's and their care partners.
You hit a couple of the most famous home runs in Major League history, Gibby, but I feel that your greatest hit will be the positive impact the Kirk Gibson Center is making in the fight against Parkinson's.
Mitch, since my diagnosis, I get up every day and focus on winning that day. This center encourages others to do the same.
Awesome, Gibby. To learn more, go to kirkgibsoncenter.org.
Coming up later today at 3 on the Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
All right, welcome back to X's and Bros. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard. He'll be back on Monday. We're going to continue our discussion with former NFL head coach Todd Haley. And Todd, as we got together over the summer, you really were high on the Dallas Cowboys, and I do like their recent signing. They go out one-year deal, pick up Von Miller for $5.5 million. I mean, the guy got 9.5 sacks last year. That's a pretty good bet that you're going to get, close to 10 sacks with him. Everybody is high that the Dallas Cowboys defense has got better. And how I relate it to the NFC North, the listeners out there got to remember, there were 3 teams in the NFC West that made the playoffs last year. Only one from the South, the NFC South, and that was Carolina. Carolina had a losing record, for God's sake. The East, obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles, and then, of course, the North, Green Bay and the Chicago Bears were able to make it. Detroit finds themselves on the outside looking in, but that's what Detroit is competing against. If they're unable to win their division, Todd, say against Green Bay or Chicago or Minnesota, for that matter, they could be fighting a team like Dallas for that 7th spot or 6 or 7 spot potentially for the wild card. Your thoughts, because you like Dallas over the summer.
Yeah, I do like Dallas because I think their offense, again, this is on paper, everybody's, health is the key part, but offensively, I like this team. I mean, they won 7 games last week with one of the worst defenses in the league and tied one where they scored 1 million points in that game that they tied. So I like the offense. I don't think they're going to go backwards a whole bunch. I think they're going to be able to score points, and if the defense can just be middle of the road, I don't see how Dallas isn't able to win, 10, 11 games, even in the division they're in. So, they're going to have 6 new starters on defense, all kind of proven guys other than Caleb Downs, who I really like. A lot of people thought he was the best player in the draft, so I think this defense is going to be better. How much better, remains to be seen, but they're just 15, 16, 17. And with the offense that they have, I don't see how they don't win more games. And if the defense happens to be a top 10 defense, I mean, under a new coordinator and Christian Parker, you're hearing a lot of good things from. Now, we still need to see him do it for the first time as a defense coordinator. But yeah, I am high on the Cowboys, but with the Lions, that is the easiest way, and this is to get into the playoffs, which is the name of the game, is to win your division. And the Lions happen to be in what appears to be a pretty tough one. I think Chicago, I don't think they're going to go backwards too much. I think Green Bay always, with Jordan Love with another year under his belt, once they get Micah Parsons back, I think they're going to be a contender. And Minnesota, a little unknown just because of the quarterback situation and what it's going to look like with Kyler Murray. At some point, do they go to JJ? I don't know how that's going to play out. But, with Detroit, you got to – if you can win your division, I mean, even go 4-2, that's huge. You go 5-1, you're probably getting in the playoffs more times than not. But, and I love Detroit. I love their roster. My biggest issue is at center again, as it was last year when Ragnow retired. Now you got Cade Mays goes down, and he's going to miss a ton of time. So what that center position, we saw how critical it was last year, looks like is going to be critical to their development. I mean, I'm hearing great things about Blake Miller, Tate Ratledge, a high pick last year. Panay Sewell going over to left tackle. I love their receiver group. I love Jahmyr Gibbs and Pacheco going, creating a nice tandem in the backfield, and Jared Goff. But we know Jared Goff to be his best. That center position is really critical because he makes a lot of decisions in the run and pass game. So, that's really my only worry other than, the Terrion Arnold situation. And just how all that plays out in the secondary would be my second concern. But I like this team, and I think they got a very good chance to compete within the division and in my mind, win it potentially.
Well, in a lot of ways, the NFC North is a lot like college football right now. There's really only one team that's got a legitimate defense, and that's Minnesota. Even Green Bay this year, they're switching schemes. They bring in Jonathan Gannon from Arizona. They're going to a 3-4, much like Dallas, who you just brought up. They're changing schemes, going to a 3-4. But the NFC North the past 2 years, it's really been the highest scoring division in football. You look at Caleb Williams last year, the Bears, 7 of their 9 wins came in the last couple minutes of the game. So it's really last-minute scores where Detroit, Chicago, I think Green Bay has it. We'll see if Minnesota can score more points offensively once they settle their quarterback position. But it really is it's kind of who scores last is how I see it, because I don't see any defenses threatening other than Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota, arguably, you'd say, is the best team on paper roster-wise, but except for the most critical position, which is quarterback. And I just don't know what it's going to look like, Jim. I mean, Kyler Murray, yes, number 1 overall pick, has done some MVP-like stuff during his career in Arizona. But, their best player, and you can touch on this a little bit, their best player on offense is arguably Justin Jefferson. And where does he play generally? The X position. How do X's get the football in an NFL offense? It's pocket passing. You're not going to roll out a whole. Now they can move them around and do those types of things, but eventually you're going to get the third down, and an X is catching a slant, he's catching a hitch, he's catching an in, he's catching a deep over, and all those throws generally are made from the pocket. So, I just got to see what this looks like. If we get 3-4 games into the season, and Justin Jefferson, arguably one of the best receivers in the league, if not the best, it's him or Jamar Chase in my mind right now, is getting 4 or 5 targets a game like Marvin Harrison Jr. was in Arizona, then he's not going to be happy, and that's going to be a problem. So I got to see what this quarterback position looks like. But I agree, Minnesota, this defense I think is, top 5. I would think, if I had to predict them. And I think at the end of the year, if they get a little help from the offense, they're going to be one of the best defenses in the league. I still have the Texans at the top, but I agree. So this is a scoring division. The Bears are the biggest example of that. And I've heard you talk a bunch about Caleb. I think Ben Johnson with this, we're going to be the highest, set the record for scoring. And saying things like that, it's his way of trying to create that fourth quarter for Caleb Williams, because when the lights were the brightest and it was the biggest moments, that's when we saw his true ability come out. So I got to believe Ben Johnson is trying to somehow create that fourth quarter feeling for Caleb Williams on a full-time basis.
Yeah, and the statistics back it up. The Bears were the number 1 scoring team in the last 3 minutes of games. So, but if you go before the half, the Bears were not good. They were like one of the worst in the NFL before the half. Those are 2 key markers. End of the first half scoring where you can flip the script, and then, of course, in the final 3 minutes where the Bears led everybody in the entire National Football League. Well, if the listeners didn't know, Todd Haley is the son of an incredible scout, Dick Haley. If you don't know about Dick Haley, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He built basically the Steel Curtain, from Mel Blount to Mean Joe Green, all those great draft picks, the linebackers. And Todd, this is where I'm going with this next question. Have we lost the way the NFL is now, and the trickling up of the college system in the scoring, which is what the NFL wants? Have we lost the luster of championship defenses? I still like Houston's defense. I think they are a championship defense. I think Philadelphia has a championship style defense. We'll see what happens with the Rams now that they've added Myles Garrett, and we'll see if Aaron Donald returns. They may have a championship caliber defense, and we saw a pretty good one in Seattle last year. But there's only 4 or 5 dominant ones, is where I look at it right now in the NFL.
Yeah, Jim, and I think it's a great point, and I appreciate the kind words about my father. It wasn't only the Steel Curtain. We had a guy named Lynn Swann and John Stallworth and Franco Harris.
Pretty good.
Larry Brown. I mean, so there were a lot of them, 13, I think, counting Rod Woodson and DeMonte Dawson, Hardy Nickerson, that are Hall of Famers. But, the league is cyclical. We've seen it go to a more spread out way of playing, much like college, because that's where you're pulling your pool of players from, is college players. So what happened in college over the last 10 years? Tight ends kind of became big receivers. fullbacks disappeared. But I think these smart NFL coaches have realized, hey, if the defenses are going to get smaller, why don't we get bigger and add a fullback to the mix, add an extra tight end. We saw it in St. Louis last year with Sean McVay. They had some receiver issues. They went to 13 personnel, which is 3 tight ends, a back, and 1 receiver, and dominated really down the stretch. So all these teams pay attention. They study in the offseason. They look what's working. And now we're seeing teams draft 2 tight ends in the draft and doing different things to try to get to that, place and have the ability to do what they saw really work against undersized defensive players at that will linebacker position. The teams that have stayed dominant are, Umanor, that have that Derwin James piece. Caleb Downs, I think that's why you see him drafted. Kyle Hamilton in Baltimore. That's the key piece in my mind. That's why I like Dallas with Caleb Downs, is that unique safety that can do both. He can play in the back end. He's got cover skills. He's got ball skills, but he also can come down into the box and cover a tight end. He can be involved in the run game. But I think we're cycling back, Jim. I really do. Yeah. I mean, I think the fullback's going to come back into play. I think extra tight ends are going to come back into play. So I think that's something to really watch this year, because I think, and we're going to see all you're hearing is quarterbacks saying under center, under center, under center. We had gotten away from quarterbacks being under center. And I have beautiful images in my mind of you running 335 play action from under center and big plays happening because of it. So I think we're going to see more under center. We're going to see bigger sets with bigger people out there, and the fullback coming back to life a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great point, Todd, because for the listeners out there, tight ends dictate strength. So if you go 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, or say 13, say the Bears drafted Sam Roush out of Stanford this year. So they've got the University of Michigan who led their team in receptions and yardage, Colston Loveland. They've already got Cole Kmet there and now drafted this big bruising tight end, Sam Roush. And I loved it, Todd, because it clears up coverages. Typically, the safeties on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to rotate down to the strength of the offense. And tight ends always dictate strength. And it actually clears up a lot of reads, Todd, for young QBs out there if you stay in those heavy sets.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I mean, I've said this multiple times on air on Sirius, is that it makes life for a quarterback much easier to be under center with 2 tight ends in there. And we know in this league now, a lot of times you're going to the line of scrimmage with 2 plays, a run and a pass, a run to pass, or pass to run. And if you can figure that out before it happens and you keep the defense more balanced, it makes it much easier to make those decisions at the line of scrimmage. It makes it much easier to discern coverage and what it's going to be. So, I think coaches are figuring that out, and GMs, and they're moving in that direction, because, I don't know if this is a fact or not, but I got to believe there's been more tight ends drafted this last year than have been drafted in a number of years. So guys are paying attention, and I think they get and understand that, and to hear you say it, that it makes your life a lot easier. I mean, it's a hard position. Anything that can make it easier to make decisions is a good thing.
Yeah, we'll get into really the history of the tight end position in the second hour, so you want to stay tuned for that. Last thought I have for you, Todd. A lot of people here, we've talked plenty on the NFC side of things as it relates to the Detroit. Are you buying into the New Orleans Saints like everybody else is? Everybody, I understand they finished last year. It was a feel-good story. They get Tyler Shuck in there. He plays well. They seem to have found their quarterback. But I'm not buying that any team in the NFC South is greater than Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield right now. They just get the contract done with Vita Vea. Atlanta's got all kinds of quarterback issues as well with their guys. And I'm not a Bryce Young fan. Carolina won the division, and their offense is pathetic as far as I'm concerned, Todd. I do not see Carolina winning that division again. I think it's Tampa Bay or bust, really.
Yeah, I have Tampa Bay also, Jim. I just think, they got the quarterback. and that's where you always have to start. And I think coaching, I like Kellen Moore. I like Dave Canales. I like, obviously,
Todd Bowles.
Atlanta's coach.
Oh, Atlanta's coach. He comes over, Stefanski from Cleveland.
Kevin Stefanski, I'm sorry. But, I think coaching is kind of a wash. So now you go right to quarterback. And, Baker Mayfield, to me, if I got to take one quarterback right now out of this division, it's him. So that's what leads me to Tampa. Now, the only thing New Orleans has going for him is Tyler Shook, did a lot of good things last year. He grew as the season went on. He had a rough start, but then started playing a lot better. But, now he could take a huge step. I don't know how that's going to play out, but I think Tampa and the only thing New Orleans has going for him is just the division competition. Atlanta, we don't know. I think on paper they look really good. They got some issues on defense with the suspensions going on and things like that. Carolina, I'm with you. Bryce Young has to show me more. So New Orleans, I think, will be competitive within the division. But if you make me pick one, I'm taking Tampa Bay. I'm going quarterback all the way.
Yeah, Todd Bowles, and obviously the experience of Baker Mayfield, who has, he supplanted one of the greatest, and Tom Brady. Look at what they've done. They've won basically 5 divisions in a row up until last year. And they were typically the NFC South always determined the last week. I mean, it wasn't until last week that Carolina really unseated and took that division with the losing record. So it's going to be pretty unsettled and going to be pretty interesting. Well, Todd, we'll let you get on your way with your day. Always appreciate your insight, and we'll do it again, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jim. Love you, man. Keep doing great work.
All right, appreciate it. Former NFL head coach, and yes, go check out his father, Dick Haley. And I actually played with Rod Woodson, was a Hall of Famer, and he drafted for a long time for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Many think that he may find his way into the Pro Football Hall of Fame because that is still one of the greatest defenses. Some would argue is that the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. I played against Tampa Bay when they were in their heyday. With Tony Dungy, that was a good defense. I don't think that was a dominant defense. When you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we beat them twice in 1 year just running the football. That's the key to Tampa 2 defenses. If you go heavy, meaning 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends that we talked about, you can pound a Tampa 2 defense, and why somewhat it's kind of fallen out of favor lately. Why even last year, Eberflus with the Dallas Cowboys, they switched over to Christian Parker because Dallas had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. It's really a speed react type of a defense that maybe has lost its way unless you find the right pieces to the puzzle. And if you do that, i.e. Warren Sapp is a 3 technique linebackers that can run in good coverage secondary like John Lynch and the corners that the Tampa Bay had down there was kind of just the perfect recipe for how well they played for so many years. So we'll see if Houston or say Philadelphia, like what Seattle did last year defensively, and we'll see how it unfolds for Myles Garrett and the LA Rams, because that'll be an interesting defense, and we'll see if they're championship caliber as the season goes along. We've got plenty to get to. You can text Sports Radio to 21,000. We've got plenty more to get to, so keep it right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey and the team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan, one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms. Our worldwide headquarters are in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. And Josh and his team connect with all the sports fans and businesses across Michigan. They bring you John Beeline on the Huge Show. They bring you Lomas Brown during the Lion season. They are a top shelf team when it comes to growth and understanding what their clients need. And mix in when we do the Beat Huge contests or the NCAA March Madness brackets. Thank you, Josh Garvey, for what you do for the Huge Show and the Michigan Sports Network. Simple and easy. Just find Dorn Mayhew on all the social networks or just Google Dorn Mayhew and find out how they can help your business. And again, a special thanks to Josh Garvey and the Dorn Mayhew team in West Michigan.
September 11th at Soaring Eagle, a hot night of soul.
Somebody sexy, tell them hey.
3-time Grammy winner Neo and the Princess of Hip Hop, Keisha Cole. Tickets start at $53 and are on sale now at the Soaring Eagle box office or etix.com. Music that takes you there. Neo and Keisha, September 11th, part of the Soaring Eagle Summer Outdoor Concert Series.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI, thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
You can't get enough Lions talk. X's and Bros gets that and wants to deliver.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about!
Every Tuesday at 8:35, we talk with Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder.
That was a trouble and dumps. Jimmy Rolder had the fumble recovery on the first possession. Allowed a sack here.
What's the mood of the team? What's the challenge with the next opponent? And what's his rookie year taught him?
Interception! This time it's Jimmy Rolder!
Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder, every Tuesday morning on X's and Bros, brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Van Andel Institute Purple Community is a grassroots fundraising network powered by the dedicated volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve human health now and in the future. When you raise funds through the Van Andel Institute Purple Community, 100% of the proceeds go directly to the Institute's research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's, as well as VAI's science education programs. Learn how you can get involved at purplecommunity.org.
All right, we are back. So good to have you on this Friday, August 21st. X's and Bros. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard. He's got a well-deserved vacay. He'll be back Monday. Do want to hear from you. You can text Sports Radio to 21,000. You can also join the hotline 866-838-4843. Great stuff in hour number one from former NFL head coach Todd Haley. Kind of took us around the league preseason. Week number 2 is already underway. Obviously, last night, San Francisco pretty much destroyed the L.A. Chargers. That one was 41-17. A little preseason action is the Las Vegas Raiders able to take down the Houston Texans. A little early action for Fernando Mendoza. Had an early interception that went all the way to the end zone, but able to rebound. As Clint Kubiak says, there's still an open competition for the quarterback spot. Preseason action, week 2 will feature Washington and Detroit already. Jared Goff not going to play in that contest, so Joshua Dobbs will be lining up for the Detroit Lions and keeping it in the division. I'll be down calling the Chicago Bears. They head on the road to take on the Cincinnati Bengals. What Todd brought up, across scrimmages, so none of the starters are going to play. We won't see Joe Burrow, won't see Jamar Chase and all the ones. And it sounds like for the Bears, that's going to be the case as well. And even Tyson Bagent, they didn't even take him down to Cincinnati, the backup to Caleb Williams, as he's injured and not even going to make the trip. Todd brought up an interesting subject in hour number 1 about how Detroit, what we call Detroit personnel, was back in the 70s when the Detroit Lions with Charlie Sanders, talented tight end. They had 2 really good tight ends. It went up to New England, who at that time had a good, very good defense, and they deployed what was called Detroit personnel. That's 2 tight ends. Every team around the league calls it Detroit personnel. So if they want 12, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, they'll say, hey, Detroit. That way the 2 tight ends know they're ready to roll onto the field. And then teams started to get even more aggressive and wanted to get heavier. So they came up with 13 personnel that Todd brought up is 3 tight ends. Last year, what Todd Haley brought up about the LA Rams is they went a lot of 13 personnel because there was a point in the year where Puka Nacua was out and, of course, Devontae Adams. And so they started to deploy, 12 and 13 personnel more, and they started to have a lot of success with it. And that, again, that's where injuries factor in. It has to be the right 53, not the best 53. If they didn't feel that their tight ends were better than their backup wideouts, they would have just kept their offense the way it is, meaning a lot of NFL offenses are probably 80% what we call 11 personnel. What's 11 personnel? 1 tight end, 1 running back, 3 wideouts. Okay, so 11. You got 3 wideouts, and about 80% of the league are running 11 personnel. Thus, they lose those receivers. They decide to go to 12 and 13, and they had a ton of success. Their play-action game was good. Obviously, with the running backs, Kyron Williams really hits it up in there, like Corum, too, the University of Michigan product. He's a north and south guy. That's what Sean McVay is looking for. But you get these heavy sets that force a defense to declare themselves. What I said, they'll have to bring the safety down to the tight end side is what they'll do. So I'm like, okay, is it man? Is it cover 3? It's a lot easier to discern that. And then if you, of course, mix in play action with that, your windows become a lot bigger, especially for young quarterbacks who you're bringing along. And a lot of teams did that. Last year, the Bears did it with Caleb Williams. Rome Odunze goes out. Luther Burden wasn't ready to play. So what did they do? They deployed 12 personnel with Cole Kmet. And then here they've got this Colston Loveland who just ends up being a star out of University of Michigan. Rome goes down. Colston comes in, and he ends up leading the Bears in not only receptions but yards. And he's almost like a third wide. So when you go 12 personnel, they'll keep Cole Kmet in line next to the tackle, and they're splitting out Colston Loveland, and they'd have basically 3 wides is how the Chicago Bears looked at it. Now, that way the defense has to make an adjustment. So when you hear nickel defense, dime defense, they're bringing in their nickel. What does that mean? So what that means is you're going to check out, say, your fullback offensively. And so what a defense does is they'll check out at that point. If you're going 3 wides, take out the fullback, you bring in the third wide. So the defense says, all right, we're going to take our strong side backer out, and we're going to bring in a lighter, more physical defensive back that can run better. That's your nickel. So that'll be your fifth guy. So you take out the strong side backer. You don't need him. You bring in a nickel guy because you're going to have another weapon to defend a receiver. Now, when they go dime, say if I go four wides, typically a defense will check out their middle backer and they'll leave their weak side backer because he can run better on the field, and it becomes a 41. So you have what's called a dime. Okay, the nickel and dime are basically a safety and an extra defensive back that are typically over the slots. And that's where offenses now feel that they can take advantage of the defense. Because when you've got big tight ends, say Sam Roush, who the Bears drafted out of Stanford, that guy is legit 6'6", 250 pounds. So imagine I bring in 12 personnel or 13 personnel. That's why they rotate their safety down. So if I go heavy right, they're going to rotate the safety down to that side. But now they bring in, the defense will have to make a decision. Oh, they're going 13. Well, we really don't want to check out our Sam backer. We don't want to check out our nickel back or our middle backer. Excuse me. We want to stay heavy defensively. And then what these offenses do is now they're splitting out guys like Colston Loveland, and now you got a linebacker on them on the outside. And if they do catch him where they bring in their nickel and dime, now they'll just check to a run play, and they feel they can pound them into oblivion because these tight ends can muscle these defensive backs, whether it's a nickel and dime. I mean, typically a big corner is considered anything over 6 foot, 200 pounds. That is a big corner. And you've got some guys that are 6'4", 210. Say who the Bears had last year on the roster, that Newsome, who ended up signing with the Jets. He had 8 interceptions, but he's a legit 6'4" corner, and he's over 200 pounds. Very rarely do you see that. Typically, your nickel back and your dime backs, they're going to come in. They're probably, 5'10", maybe 190 is considered big. Your dimes are going to be more safeties that can't run as good, and they're going to be in about the 200-pound range, but typically they're about 5'10", 5'11", when you bring in the dimes. And so these offensive coordinators feel that they've got the matchups, and the defense will have to make a decision, and then they'll see what it plays out. And kind of, if you go back in the early 2000s when Todd mentioned that it's cyclical, it almost happened with the Jets. If you look at Ryan, Coach Rex Ryan was a head coach of the Jets at that point. Remember, they had the green pound green pound is what they called it, and they could run the football, and they had Mark Sanchez as the quarterback. They did a lot of heavy personnel, and they made it to 2 AFC championship games. And I would say if they had won and made it to the Super Bowl and potentially won that Super Bowl, it would have cycled back a lot sooner. It would have cycled back a lot sooner, what Todd is talking about. But now you've got all these teams, and it's kind of a copycat league. They saw what the Rams did. About 26% of the time, they were in 12 and 13 personnel. It was the most in the National Football League. I think the Bears finished up 6 is where they were. Last year, Baltimore with King Henry. And they had Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. They had a good tight end group. They were in 12 and 13 personnel a lot. And so you're going to major in it. And now that one team had success with it, they see the problems that these defensive coordinators are having with it. Oh, they're checking out the sandbacker. Oh, they're not checking out the sandbacker. They're bringing in the nickel. And now they see all these matchups and how teams are going to look at it because the defense has to look at it that way. They're thinking heavy personnel, but now it's going to be more specialized where a team may throw 12 or 13 personnel out there, but say there's Colston Loveland there for the Bears. Your opponent may not look at it that way. They may look at him as a wideout and still say, oh, no, we're going to treat this as 3 wides. We're going to treat this as 3 wides. We're going to bring in our nickel defensively because we feel that they're going to split them out. And then that's where the cat and mouse, that's where the chess game plays in. Do want to hear from you. You can text Sports Radio at 221,000. Plus, we'll open up the hotline as well, 866-838-4843. We'll go through really the history of the tight end position. We'll come back and touch on that. It really kind of goes back. I mentioned Charlie Saunders. You look at Ozzie Newsome, great tight ends around, but it was never a group until that Detroit personnel for the Detroit Lions in the 70s. But we'll come back with the Bill Walsh 49ers. There are some tight end-centric teams out there, and we'll get plenty more into the history of the tight end position. Again, do want to hear from you, 866-838-4843. It's Jim Miller with X's and Bros on a Football Friday. Keep it right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
The good life isn't about more. It's about making what you have work better. You work hard for your money, so you shouldn't have to work hard to save it. At Meijer, you'll find all the good stuff in one stop with guaranteed fresh produce and Meijer brand faves. Quality so good, we put our name on it. And with M-Perks, you earn rewards to save on what you actually buy. Trust is worth bringing home and live a life you love. Good life quality at real low prices. Only at Meijer.
Get ready for the hottest Saturdays of the summer at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Now through August, we're dropping over $1 million in free play. Every hour from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 10 winners score $600 in free play. $1 Million Summer is back, so don't miss your shot at big summer wins. Only at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Huge here for Van Andel Institute Purple Community. Now, they're a grassroots fundraising network powered by the volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve health now and in the future. Learn more at purplecommunity.org.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
All right, welcome back to X's and Bros on a Football Friday. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard. He'll be back Monday. We are going to transition in the third hour as we will talk to Dan Bartholomew, newest athletic director of the Michigan State Spartans. Comes with a lot of success that he had with the Western Michigan Broncos. We'll get into that. He's got plenty of plans for the Michigan State Spartans. It's kind of a new era for not only Michigan State, but for the University of Michigan Wolverines as they welcome in Kyle Whittingham to be their new head coach. Had, kind of a disastrous season last year, but I will say this, Kyle Whittingham does have the benefit of a young, talented quarterback in Underwood, and we'll see where it goes with Alicio, the quarterback of Michigan State. But you look at what Fitzgerald is dealing with. He had to really retool his offensive line. If you go look at their portal transfers, they get the kid from UConn. He's going to solidify their left tackle spot, but 4/5 of their offensive line. They did get Edwards. He also comes over from UConn, average about 8 yards a carry as a running back, but still really young at wide receiver. A lot of things Courtney Hawkins, the wide receiver coach, has to figure out. So I do think it's a bigger test for changing of the culture for Pat Fitzgerald. But, that's what they're there to do. They want to install a winning culture. I think, Michigan obviously has a great history. Michigan State does as well. They kind of lost their way with previous head coaches that were kind of outsiders. And yes, Pat Fitzgerald is more known in the Big Ten and has a formula, but Kyle Whittingham, obviously very successful out there for Utah. Over 20 years as a head coach, won the Pac-12 numerous times, became the Big 12, and what was the Mountain Sky? It's hard to keep track of all these big conferences out there, but he does come with a track record. But they probably are the more talented team and think they have a shot to make the playoffs. And clearly, with the AP polling, with Ohio State number one, you've got Oregon, 2 Big Ten teams number one or sitting at the top right now, and they have won the national championship the last 3 years. I do think Michigan's got a chance to make some noise because they got some talent. Well, continuing our discussion on the tight end position, joined by Todd Haley, former NFL head coach, in the first hour, talked hot and heavy on the tight end position and why it's starting to transition again. Do want to read your texts as we roll along. You can text Sports Radio to 21,000, or you can join us 866-838-4843. But continuing the discussion on tight ends, just to give you a history, it goes back to, it's really, everybody calls it the West Coast offense. Really, it was the Mid-West Coast offense because it came from Cincinnati. All right, when you go back when Kenny Anderson and Trumpy was the tight end there, Bill Walsh was on that staff of the Cincinnati Bengals. He gets the head coaching job out there for the San Francisco 49ers, and thus, this is the West Coast offense. But they were running it in Cincinnati with Ken Anderson. But if you look at their tight ends, obviously they had Dwight Clark, and then if you remember a guy by the name of Burt Jones, certainly they had Jerry Rice and Roger Craig and Joe Montana and all these great guys, John Taylor. But then that staff out in San Francisco started to move around. You had Mike Holmgren, who then takes the head coaching job for the Green Bay Packers. And that offense has always been a tight end centric offense. Well, what do I mean by that? All right, you go back to Bubba Franks or Mark Chimera when they had Brett Favre, and certainly Andy Reid was a part of that staff. And then when Andy Reid gets the head coaching job at Philadelphia, he takes this tight end centric offense to the Philadelphia Eagles. And you probably won't remember these names. Some of their top players were their tight ends. L.J. Smith, Chad Lewis. Remember Brent Selleck, probably in the early 2000s, and still they still have good tight ends there. But then Andy Reid loses that job, right? Goes to 5 NFC Championship games. They lose the Super Bowl to a team I was on, the New England Patriots, and Andy Reid gets the head job at Kansas City. What does he do? Right? They shuffle off Tony Gonzalez, but what did he do? They drafted Kelsey. All right. And that has been a tight end centric. Nobody's going to lie that nobody's going to doubt that Travis Kelce is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. That guy has had years where he's had over 1,400 yards receiving. But it's a tight end centric offense that has always featured tight ends, is my point. And now teams are taking it to a different level with what they're doing with this 12 and 13 personnel. Okay. And and again, it goes back to the Detroit Lions. And I believe Bill Belichick was on that staff with Detroit, and they traveled up to New England. They had Tippett and a really good set of linebackers, but Detroit had these 2 really good tight ends featured with Charlie Sanders and said, hey, we believe our tight ends can beat these linebackers in a foot race. And sure enough, the Detroit Lions stayed in Detroit personnel, 2 tight ends that whole game, and they just abused the New England Patriots defense. It was really one of the best in the league at that point. And that's where Detroit personnel, 2 tight ends, was formed. And then it's always been around. Some teams that have featured it more than others. I just brought up the Jets in the modern day football in the early 2000s that somewhat got the table to turn. And now everybody's thinking it could cycle back, what Todd Haley talked about, with what the Rams did last year. When you're in 26% of the time, 2 tight ends and 3 tight ends, that is a high percentage group. That's typically normally only going to be, there are teams in the single digits that are only going to be, 6%, 8%, 26% is a very heavy percentage to be in. So they did it knowingly, and teams couldn't combat it. So that's why this year you see teams reacting. Again, copycat league. You got the Bears drafting Sam Roush out of Stanford. All these teams are plucking these tight ends. You look at the emergence of, who is it up there in Green Bay? Tucker Kraft. They drafted 2 tight ends the same draft a couple of years ago. They drafted Kraft, and the guy who they drafted ahead of him was Musgrave, who's actually very athletic, but Tucker Kraft has kind of supplanted him. You got obviously the Indianapolis Colts. They drafted their top tight end, Warren, out of Penn State. This guy's a beast. And so teams are featuring it more, and they feel they have kind of cracked the puzzle because you've got defend every blade of grass mentality defensively, where they've got these lighter guys on the field, and now you can get bigger and you can kind of push these guys around. Teams are featuring it more and more, and why teams reacted. And so I think you're going to see a lot of it around the National Football League, especially even in division of the NFC North with Green Bay, with what Chicago did last year, and even Detroit will dabble in it too. I mean, at times they bring in Dan Skipper as a kind of a blocking tight end, a 6 guy, where they can kind of overload some things and kind of pound it a little bit, but yet they'll still spread you out with tight ends that can flex out like wide receivers, and they consider it 3 wides. But it definitely puts the defense in a bind. But there definitely is a history to it in the NFL, and maybe now it's cycling back. So do want to hear from you. Text Sports Radio to 21,000, or you can call us 866-838-4843. And Brent, my good man on the other side of the glass, I believe we've got a couple of texts. Could you rip one off for the listeners out there? What do they think about anything on the Spartans or U of M too?
This is actually about tight ends. They want to know your thoughts on Sam Laporta, and if you think the number 2 and number 3 guys on the depth chart for the Lions can carry this team without him.
No, I think he is a special player, and thanks, Brett, for reading that. Laporta is a special player. Think about that. Detroit had Hawkinson, right? They had Hawkinson on the roster, and Dan Campbell arrives, who's played the position of tight end, and he says, oh, no, we're drafting this guy Laporta. And then they trade away Hawkinson to the Minnesota Vikings, and many thought that was a steal. I mean, Minnesota gave up really high picks, and Detroit was able to draft Laporta because Dan Campbell viewed Laporta as the better prospect. And he's dealing with the hip injury right now for the Lions, but, Brock Wright's more of a blocker is what I'd say behind him. Go ahead, Brett. I'm sorry. Yeah, and you look at it, but I think Laporta, I don't think it's anything serious with him. They can do a lot with him, but the reason why he's a better blocker than Hawkinson is what I'd say. Coming from Iowa, he led, think about Iowa's history in tight ends, and this guy had the all-time receptions leader at the tight end position. They've had good dudes through there. They've had Dallas Clark. They've had great guys through there. Noah Fant. They've had a lot of good tight ends through the Iowa Hawkeyes, and Laporta is probably one of the best in the league. Hasn't shown the best what he can do, and I think they'll be fine once he recovers from this hip. We've got to hit the final break this hour, so let's hit the break here. We'll come back. More from X's and Bros Friday, August 21st. Back after this on the Michigan Sports Network.
In my pro football days, the key to winning was a great game plan. It's no different when it comes to your retirement. Hi, this is Mitch Lyons from Mitch Lyons Wealth. Is stock market turbulence making you question whether your plan is okay? Do the ups and downs of your retirement account give you the jitters? Are you protected against the next market downdraft? As you approach retirement, you're entering the retirement red zone. Like in football, the game changes in the red zone. There's less time for mistakes, and you need to see your blind spots and protect yourself. Is your retirement safe? Let's find out today. Let's create a game plan together that will protect, grow, and win retirement. You've worked hard to save what you have. Let's make sure you keep it. 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is worth a 15-minute call to make sure you've done all that you can to protect your retirement. Call Mitch Lyons Wealth today at 844-867-8335. That's 844-867-8335. Or go to MitchLyonsWealth.com. Investment advisory services are offered through MLW Advisory Services, DBA Mitch Lyons Wealth, a state-registered investment advisor.
Van Andel Institute Purple Community is a grassroots fundraising network powered by the dedicated volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve human health now and in the future. When you raise funds through the Van Andel Institute Purple Community, 100% of the proceeds go directly to the Institute's research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's, as well as VAI's science education programs. Learn how you can get involved at purplecommunity.org.
Get ready for the hottest Saturdays of the summer at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Now through August, we're dropping over $1 million in free play. Every hour from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 10 winners score $600 in free play. $1 million summer is back, so don't miss your shot at big summer wins. Only at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Coming up later today at 3 on The Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
So happy you can be with us on this football Friday, August 21st. Jim Miller in for Matt Shepard. X's and Bros continues again in the final hour. We'll have newest athletic director to the Michigan State Spartans. Got his number on the jersey yesterday. 22nd newest athletic director for the Spartans, and Dan Bartholomew is going to join us in the final hour. So we'll talk plenty in that hour. University of Michigan football. We'll talk plenty on the Michigan State Spartans as, hey, they're getting ready to kick off. They're finishing up fall camp as well. Much like the NFL action is preseason week 2 is kicking off, got underway last night. Obviously, Fernando Mendoza, he got an early thoughts of what he thinks of the Houston Texans defense. Early pick 6, but able to rebound, had a fine day. According to Clint Kubiak, head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, there's an open competition at the quarterback spot. You could say the same thing last night about the San Francisco 49ers. They looked in good form. They started the game with their starters. Brock Purdy had a couple of nice throws, 29-yarder early in the game as San Francisco kind of trashes the L.A. Chargers. And so Jim Harbaugh and his talented quarterback, Justin Herbert, only 3 snaps last night. Do think the Chargers can shake it up again under Jim Harbaugh. That is a tough AFC West that they are dealing with. But, hey, Patrick Mahomes, we'll see if the dynasty that Kansas City kind of fell off the cliff last year with the teams that arrived in the division, what the Chargers been able to do, and obviously the emergence of the Denver Broncos that took over that division last year. Can Patrick Mahomes shake it up here in 2026? Do want to hear from you, 866-838-4843, or you can text us. You can just text Sports Radio to 21,000. Had a great discussion with Todd Haley, former NFL head coach, in hour number 1, talking about the tight end position. Kind of took you through the history of that position in the last segment, and want to get your thoughts on that as well, because it could play big. We got a message from a texter. Is Sam Laporta enough? I don't think the tight ends behind, when you look at Brock Wright and the tight ends that are behind Sam Laporta, they are more blockers. They are more blockers, in my opinion, not as well-rounded as what Sam Laporta is, but certainly need him healthy with what they're – but they can still go heavy sets, and they can always, motion out Jahmyr Gibbs. He's essentially a wide receiver, and it sounds like Dan Campbell and Dan Pritzer, who takes over as the OC, they're going to do more from that standpoint. Gibbs is more of a third wide, is what I would say. You got Jamison Williams, certainly Amonra St. Brown. You can't sleep on him. He's still the leader in the clubhouse. Laporta factors in, but you got red zone presence like Isaac Tesla, who continues to develop. But I think they're going to try and spread you out more than anything is what Detroit's going to do. If they want to go heavy, it's going to be more blocker related when you bring in Brock Wright or, like I said, Skipper and kind of pound it from that standpoint. But Laporta, to me, is really the only receiving tight end that they have. But it's for Detroit, and why Todd Haley spoke so highly about Dallas, I think that's who Detroit is competing against for a playoff spot. Because last year you had 3 teams make the NFC West, right? Seattle, who ultimately won it all, San Fran, and of course what the Rams are doing. Many think the Rams are the favorite out there. In the South, typically it's only been a one-man band. One of those 4 teams kind of always cannibalize each other when you look at Tampa, New Orleans, Atlanta, and Carolina. And ultimately it comes down to the last week of the season, which is what happened last year, where it unfolded that Carolina, with a losing record, made the playoffs. And I only see one team emerging from the South again. My pick would be Tampa, but a lot of people like the New Orleans Saints. In the East, it gets interesting because a lot of people are liking the return of Dallas. They just signed Von Miller. They are switching over to a 3-4 defense, but they are a very high-scoring offense with Dak Prescott. You can say what you want about Dak Prescott. That guy has led the league many years with their ability to move the football and how he's thrown the football. I mean, he was a double-digit winning quarterback when he filled in for Tony Romo, and they have never looked back. He comes under a lot of criticism, but scoring points has never been a problem for Dallas. Many still like Philadelphia to hold on in that division. Nick Sirianni in that group. Think about Nick Sirianni's career. Everybody thinks he's on a Hall of Fame path with what he's done. He's done nothing but getting Super Bowls and playoffs since he's arrived there, but it's a talented team. And they still are a talented team. And with Vic Fangio on the defensive side of the ball, they've got some young studs that could hold on to that division again. But many think Dallas can challenge. And that's going to leave the NFC North. Last year, 2 teams made it from the North, Green Bay and Chicago. Now, can Detroit take over the division again and win the division like the Bears surprised everybody last year? I think it's wide open. I think Green Bay has the opportunity to do it. I think Detroit has the opportunity to do it. I think Chicago. Minnesota, as good as their defense is, I just don't think they're good enough at quarterback where they'll be threatening. They'll be in the middle of the pack and they'll have a chance, but I don't see it happening. I just think it's with those other 3 teams because they can score. In the last 2 years, the NFC North has scored more points than any other division. And you look at the pinball games last year. What was it? Cincinnati and in Chicago. I think there was over 30 points scored in that fourth quarter. And Loveland ended up getting the game winner as a 35-yarder to finish it out. It was like a pinball machine. There was no defense at all. And I think that's a lot like what the NFC North. Green Bay will have to see how that 3-4 settles in with Jonathan Gannon, their new defensive coordinator. Typically, schemes, they're going to take time. And everybody can say, they've got one of the best pass rushers who they traded for last year in Dallas, Micah Parsons' talent, but he's not healthy. And he's not going to be back right away. And those guys are going to have to learn a new scheme. Lucas Van Ness, who they've been counting on, a kid they drafted from Iowa. They traded away Rashawn Gary, and he's played stand-up before. We look at Lucas Van Ness, but they're going to have to find a pass rush early and some semblance of a defense because Jeff Hafley moves on to the Miami Dolphins, and we'll have to see how that settles in. And whether you're a believer in Jordan Love, for me, he's too loosey-goosey with the football, but they can score a lot of points, and they have scored a lot of points under Matt LaFleur. But that's where it could be. And it's going to be about common opponents. This year, both the NFC East, I think Chicago plays, Philadelphia week 2. So common opponents are the big formula, and what decides the playoffs and how you do in your conference and common opponents. And they will face some common opponents this year that could decide it for Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, or Detroit. And if Dallas is the team they're competing against, I think that could be the key right there is how they finish on common opponents. And, we'll see how it shakes out. And again, they should be able to score points with anybody. I think the whole, other than Minnesota, I think the whole NFC North can score as good as anybody in the NFL. But Dallas can too. And now we'll see if their defense is a part of it because many see them emerging. Because I don't see anything more than 2 teams in the NFC North again. I don't. But they'd have to hold off Dallas to be able to do that. Do want to hear your thoughts. 866-838-4843. Anything on the Lions, anything on the Spartans, anything on the Wolverines, or you can text Sports Radio to 21,000. Early thoughts by you, too, on the preseason. Are you upset that you're not seeing the starters? Todd Haley and I went over that as well. Cross scrimmages became big when I was early with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I got drafted there in 94. We always had 2 scrimmages. We always scrimmaged the Washington Redskins at that point, and we always went and scrimmaged the Buffalo Bills. Either they would come to Latrobe or we would go see them. So technically we had 6 preseason games, and those were legitimate scrimmages with officials, and coaches were off the field, and they ran it just like a game. So we had 6 preseason games, and now it's cut down to 3. And a lot of these coaches now are circumventing the preseason by having these cross scrimmages, and they're not even going to play their starters in the games. They get all their work in during the week, and then they elect to rest their starters because it's about, getting to the season healthy. And a lot of times, probably that first month of the season, it's not a great product to watch. It really isn't. The tackling's awful. The blitz pickups aren't that good. Blocking needs to be a little bit better, and why you've had a lot of quarterbacks go down early the past couple of years. And then kind of month 2, kind of the first month of the season, it ends up really being the preseason for the starters. They're getting in shape. The tackling becomes better. And then kind of at the end of September, it's much better football, and it's a better product to watch moving forward. And then, of course, once the season comes down to the end, those are always great matchups because I do think the NFL has done a great job to keep division play in the mix. When I mentioned the NFC South, that's when you have all those division battles that ultimately decide who wins the division. And that's really the case across the NFL. Both AFC and NFC were all those second meetings in the division. really force the season to shake out of who's their division winner. Because as a player, all you care about, every coach that in the history of the NFL has always preached the same thing. Gentlemen, if you win your division, you're in, right? You're going to get that 4th seed no matter what. Say if you win your division. And that's why Carolina can make the playoffs with a losing record. They may change that moving forward, but Carolina knows, hey, we're going to make the playoffs. We win this game here last week of the season. We win our division and we're in. And so that's your best path as a player, is to go with what your coach says and win your division. Because otherwise everything's left up in the air, where you're deciding on help for other teams that can help you. And, and ultimately it doesn't work out. Sometimes it does, but you don't want to be counting on anybody else. You want to be taking care of your business yourself. And we'll see if the Lions or any team in the NFC North can do that, because they're going to have to hold off Dallas, who I think is a legitimate threat. But I do think 2 can come from the North again. 3 could be coming from the NFC West again. I do only see 1 from the South, but I think Dallas is a team that could mix. The other teams just aren't ready yet. Like what John Harbaugh is doing for the Giants. They'll get Scadaboo back, but they're bringing along a young quarterback in Dart, and the other teams just aren't ready. Washington has taken a step back. I don't know if they're as talented. They were one of the oldest teams in the NFL last year. Do like their young quarterback in Jaden Daniels, but he got hurt. There's another starter that went down for most of the season, and here Washington found themselves on the outside looking in, and they were the Cinderella story. Went into Detroit the season before and made it all the way to the NFC Championship game, losing to Philadelphia. So it definitely can happen, going worst to first, but I don't see Washington making that move. Dallas has really made more moves here this offseason to put themselves in the position who the Lions could be competing with for that wild card spot that really matters, unless Detroit's able to decide their fate themselves and win the division, which is going to be tough in a cutthroat, high-scoring NFC North. That's been one of the tougher divisions, much like the NFC West for the past couple years. You better bring your hard hat and be able to score a lot of points, because they may just outscore their opponents, is how they're looking at it. So want to hear your thoughts on that. 866-838-4843, or you can text Sports Radio to 21,000 and get your thoughts how it shakes out. Does it bother you as a fan that you're paying full boat for these preseason games and you don't even get to see the starters at the end of the day? A lot of people are having a hard taste of that. And will they just get rid of preseason altogether? Most coaches that I talk to still like the preseason games, because they do get to look at a lot of the young players. And maybe you like that as a fan. Just, hey, I know what the starters can do. I just want to see what the backups can do. Lions fans, you're going to see a lot of Joshua Dobbs. Not that you don't know him. He's been around the league a long time, but how he looks for your team, as Teddy Bridgewater elects to call a career and retire. Now Detroit has another void that they got to fill behind Jared Goff, which to me wouldn't be a good situation if Jared unfortunately does go down. But how do you feel as a fan paying full boat for those preseason tickets and you don't see the starters, but there's always the other tail that you can like seeing the backups and how they perform, I guess, is the other way to look at it. But typically the coaches I talk to, they do like that they can get, and even the undrafted free agents, they can get them a lot of playing time that gets them an opportunity to get the true evaluations of what they need. And again, it's about the right 53, not the best 53. And what do I mean by that? You may keep a more talented player for a better roster, but is it the right player? Because typically when you come out of training camp, there's going to be injuries. I'll use the Bears as an example because I know them the best, calling them in the preseason. They've got a lot of injuries on defense right now. So you have to look at a 53-man roster, 25 on offense, 25 on defense, and you got your three specialists, right? Kicker, punter, and your long snapper. So there's 53. You typically want to keep 25 and 25. But say the Bears, because they've got a lot of injuries at safety right now with Kobe Bryant going down, and I think Cam Lewis, the backup, went down, and Xavier Rhodes, who they just signed from, who played in Tennessee last year, he just went down. So probably what the Bears are going to have to do, they'll probably keep instead of that 25, they'll keep 22 on offense, and they'll have to be heavier loaded on defense. So they'll keep say 28 to 29 guys defensively, knowing they got injuries at safety, keep a couple extra guys. And so that's how you fudge your roster. All right. You fudge it that way, and you put the extra players on the practice squad. And certainly you're going to bring back now there's 2 designations that you can bring back guys during the year for IR, and you got guys that are on the shelf there. Guys are still getting activated from the physically unable to perform list, but you're going to fudge those rosters that way for your final cut down is what be. And that has to be the right 53. Again, not the best 53, because keeping an extra safety that might for the Bears may not be the most talented player that they want to keep. But for that situation, it's the right situation for them to go into the start of the season for the roster, to have that extra guys there at safety that can help out and do what they need to do, because that's where they're injury heavy right now heading out of training camp. And that's where every team is going to have to decide across the league. I talked to Todd Bowles, head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's how and I thought it was, a great way to look at it. He said it's got to be the right 53. Not the best 53. And you're managing that roster throughout the entire NFL season, bringing guys up from the practice squad, activating them when you have weeks where you're going to be a little bit light at certain positions, and you got to have the right guys in that backup spot. And certainly the guys who are playing in this preseason all have to perform on special teams. Whether if it's an extra linebacker, they're going to play. They're going to be a 4-core special teams player where they're on all the special teams, and they got to be able to cover, but yet come off the bench, get you through a game. If you got an injury at linebacker, say Jack Campbell goes down and next man up, he's got to come in and perform, Rodriguez, whoever it is, and has to fill in for, a 2 or 3 game stretch. And now they'll be taking off special teams, and whoever you sign to your roster, they'll have to take that role on special teams. And hopefully there's no drop off at the end of the day. And if you can manage that throughout the entirety of a 17-week, and that's normally where you're going to see the teams that are in it in the end. And that's how it is, because the injuries always happen. Everybody can blame them, but you've got to have guys. It's got to be the best 53 that you can put there in terms of guys who are on the back end of the roster, because every player is going to have to contribute. Not only the 53 that are on the roster, your 16 practice squad players. Those guys are constantly going to get pulled up week in and week out, where they have to participate, and they've got to play in all 3 phases, whether it's offense, defense, and special teams. And you can't have that drop off. And you've seen it happen. Who was it? It happened last year in Seattle. They had to go to their backup young quarterback. He throws a pick 6 early in the game. That game was over by halftime for Minnesota against the Seattle Seahawks, all due to the injury at one key position. We're going to hit the final break this hour. Do want to hear from you, 866-838-4843, or you can text us. Text Sports Radio 221,000. Back after this.
Mitch Lyons here, founder of Mitch Lyons Wealth, where we create your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. I'm here with Tiger legend Kirk Gibson, who we are proud to support and partner with on the newly opened Kirk Gibson Center for Parkinson's Wellness.
Thanks, Mitch. We appreciate your support, and we are excited to have recently opened the center in Farmington Hills. It provides exercise therapy and educational programs that are helping the Parkinson's community. Just like Mitch Lyons Wealth helps improve the quality for their clients' retirements, this center helps improve the quality of life for people with Parkinson's.
And Gibby, the best part of all is that access to the center is available to the Parkinson's community free of charge, right?
That's right, absolutely free of charge for people with Parkinson's and their care partners.
You hit a couple of the most famous home runs in Major League history, Gibby, but I feel that your greatest hit will be the positive impact that Kirk Gibson Center is making in the fight against Parkinson's.
Mitch, since my diagnosis, I get up every day and focus on winning that day. This center encourages others to do the same.
Awesome, Gibby. To learn more, go to kirkgibsoncenter.org.
Huge here for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You can stay up to date on the latest from Lansing 24/7 at MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. The latest news, press releases, and stories connected to every high school in the state of Michigan, available for you 24/7 from the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Log on to MHSAA.com, at MHSAA on Twitter, and MHSAA on Facebook. And if you're looking for archive, boys and girls, high school sports, MHSAA.TV. That's MHSAA.TV. TV. 24/7, everything you need to know about high school sports in Michigan. Log on to MHSAA.com.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
In the Den with Dan Dickerson.
It's a new day to celebrate and be free. And it's a new day full of action and excitement because it's a day for winning. Only at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, your getaway reimagined.
So who is this Brett Callahan kid who's come up and driven in 5 runs in his first 3 games? Well, it's kind of a wild story. Callahan wasn't anywhere on the radar going into the season. A former 13th round pick out of St. Joe's in Philly in 2023, Callahan was an A-ball last year. He put up solid numbers, but he also knew he had to be better. So he worked hard on his swing this past winter. Less movement at the plate, kept his head still, which allowed him to see the ball better. Callahan went to Double-A this year, hit with impressive power. That led to a promotion to Triple-A, and then after just 39 games there, a call to the major leagues. In his first 3 games, he had a 2-run triple, a 2-run single, and a home run in Pittsburgh that jumped off his bat at 110 miles an hour. Callahan has beaten the odds just by getting to the major leagues. Now, he's making a strong case to stay.
Huge here for Van Andel Institute Purple Community. Now, they're a grassroots fundraising network powered by the volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve health now and in the future. Learn more at purplecommunity.org.
We continue on a Football Friday. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard. X's and Bros. They do have exciting things this hour as we will have the newest athletic director of the Michigan State Spartans, Dan Bartholomew. He'll join us about 8:35 a.m. time, so you want to stay tuned for that. As kind of University of Michigan and the Michigan State Spartans, they have new eras, right? They're kind of kicking off, going in a different direction. Both have new head coaches, pretty similar in their backgrounds. You've got Kyle Winningham. It's his first season as the Wolverines head coach, but he spent the last 20 years out at Utah, had a ton of success out there, not only in the Mountain West when they became to the Pac-12 or Big 12. Hard to keep track of all these conferences, but he's done a fine job. And Michigan has tabbed him, the new head coach, to lead them in a new era. And I'd say the same thing for Michigan State. Obviously, Pat Fitzgerald comes highly regarded in the Big Ten, similar numbers, about 17 years as the Northwestern Wildcats head coach. Really stabilized that program after a slew of coaches had been through there and had really done a nice job. They were always in competition and probably did more with less. I think he has an opportunity to do great things at Michigan State. But, I do want to hear from you on how you think their seasons are going to pan out. You've got the recent AP polling, Big Ten at the top with Ohio State and Oregon, who's a big part of the Big Ten now. And I think Michigan should be there. I think they came in ranked 16th is where they have. I think they should be better than that. There's a lot returning, and I think there are more expectations for Kyle Winningham than what is expected of Pat Fitzgerald, who in my opinion is kind of rebuilding everything. Brought in a lot of portal transfers for the Spartans defensively, and I already mentioned the offensive line. Both have young quarterbacks. Alicio, I don't think comes as highly regarded as what Bryce Underwood does for the University of Michigan. And Michigan won 9 games last year. Think about that. They won 9 games, as bad as all the distractions were off the field, because they've got talent. They've got a really good offensive line returning. They've got a young, talented quarterback that does have targets that are returning. Michigan State can't say the same. Nick Marsh, I think he transferred away. Their top target really transferred away to Indiana. So Cignetti was stealing in division again as they look to put their best foot forward. And I think Indiana came ranked in at number 6. I don't think they're going to finish that. One, they've got a brutal schedule when you look at Indiana. And 2, they got to replace their quarterback. And that's not an easy thing to do. For the Spartans, Alicio Milivojevic, he got in the last 4 games last year. But again, they only won 4 games. So I think there's just more work to do for the Michigan State Spartans. But I do think they've tabbed the right man in Pat Fitzgerald to bring them along. And it also will be good to talk to Dan Bartholomew. He had the introductory press conference in East Lansing. Talked about the opportunity, excited about the new landscape of where college is going. And he's going to be a big part of it. And the Big Ten, which kind of has taken over what everybody considered the dominant conference in the SEC, and here the Big Ten has won 3 national championships in a row. And why can't they do it again? And there's always, every coach, it doesn't matter whether it's Kyle Winningham or, say, Pat Fitzgerald, what are you trying to do? You're every day you're trying to create a winning culture inside your building. And again, these coaches have done that at their respective places, whether Utah or whether Fitzgerald there for Northwestern. But you're creating that culture every day, and you have the quote unquote buy-in, and that formula has worked other places. Now, I do think when you look at the history of Michigan and Michigan State, there was an era where they kind of lost their way. For I think University of Michigan is when they went outside the box, hired Rich Rodriguez. And I thought Michigan State did it when they brought in John L. Smith, and it didn't go well in either standpoint. And then they came back and returned and hired more solid guys. Obviously, the return of Jim Harbaugh for the University of Michigan Wolverines, and obviously Mark D'Antonio had just a string of success for a long time at Michigan State until Jonathan Smith took over. Now they're heading back, and I think I do give Pat Fitzgerald credit there too, because he's got a better idea of what Big Ten football is all about. There is a certain way that I think you still got to play, even though it is more spread out and cookie cutter is what I'd say of college football. But I think Pat Fitzgerald has a better understanding of it than Kyle Whittingham, who's bringing his culture, but it's a little bit different in the Big Ten. And probably the best example of that, if you look at the job Brett Bielema has done for Illinois, he has really kicked out some top talent. They've won some big games when you look at the Fighting Illini. And I think Brett Bielema, his time at Wisconsin, really served him well. And he's always typically been a trench guy who's going to get in the guys who can win offense and defensive line and build your team that way. And I think Brett Bielema has done a good job. And I do think that, Pat Fitzgerald coming from that background in the Big Ten at Northwestern, that will serve him well. And I do think those divisional games and your experience in them and knowing them, whether it's, for the trophies, whether it's the Little Brown Jug or the Land-Grant Trophy between Michigan and Penn State, when you know those rivalries and what they're about, I do think that serves you better. And you do have those rivalry games that matter. And for Kyle Whittingham, he's going to find that out. I think Pat Fitzgerald knows the Michigan State history. I think when outsider coaches come into the Big Ten and take those roles, they really don't understand them. You don't understand them until you go through them. And I think for Kyle Whittingham, when he has that week, say that Michigan State Michigan battle, even though he knows of it until you go through it, then it takes on a whole different meaning, is what I'd say. Because those games matter, because those rivalries, anything can happen in them. And Michigan, with the 9 wins last year, I wouldn't just put that off as, that's a checkmark win for the Wolverines. No, it's not going to be that way. Nor their other division, or nor their other big rivalry games like Ohio State, which is going to be a big one for Michigan. That has been a bugaboo. There's no doubt about it. But we'll see how it finishes up and how they really navigate their seasons and how they create these winning cultures and how they deal with those key matchups. But Michigan, I expect them, the expectations higher. To me, they should be a playoff team with the talent that they have at quarterback. They won 9 games last year, and they did that with all the distractions going on with their head coach. And I think Kyle has done a good job. I mean, typically when you have a new coach come in, what happens? Your quarterback and your top guys are transferring out. That's not the case for Kyle. And so I do think they have a good chance to make the playoffs, and we'll have to see how they navigate those rivalry games and where they go with their season. So do want to get your thoughts on that, as we will have Dan Bartholomew, newest athletic director of the Michigan State Spartans. He'll join us about 8:35 a.m. And want to get your thoughts on anything Big Ten or what you see in the preseason of the National Football League. You can join us as well at 866-838-4843. What do you like out of the preseason, or even how the AP poll, I should say, panned out, and how you view the Big Ten? Do you view that as the top conference now? Because I think many in the NFL, they are viewing the Big Ten in a much different light. And I think even the SEC crowd and the ESPN crowd would say that as well, because there's nothing you can say when you got 3 national championships and potentially could be a 4th with the 2 top teams from the Big Ten ranked at the top. And I think there were 12 overall. I mean, with Indiana being at 6 and Michigan comes in at 16, and Penn State and the other clubs. Michigan State did not get a vote, so they didn't make it into the top 25. But clearly, the Big Ten has really good representation and could do it again for the 4th time in terms of the national championship. So we've got plenty on board for you in this final hour, getting you kicked off to a great weekend. Hope everybody out there has a safe and happy weekend this August 21st. X's and Bros will continue. We'll have MSU Athletic Director Dan Bartholomew about 8:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's come back. Do want to hear from you, whether it's the text. You can text Sports Radio 221,000. Want to get your thoughts on the Big Ten season, get your thoughts on the preseason, or where you see the NFL season going, or you can reach us at 866-838-4843. This is Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard. Keep it right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
In the Den with Dan Dickerson.
It's a new day to celebrate and be free. It's a new day full of action and excitement because it's a day for winning. Only at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort. Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort, your getaway reimagined.
So who is this Brett Callahan kid who's come up and driven in 5 runs in his first 3 games? Well, it's kind of a wild story. Callahan wasn't anywhere on the radar going into the season. A former 13th round pick out of St. Joe's in Philly in 2023, Callahan was an A-ball last year. He put up solid numbers, but he also knew he had to be better. So he worked hard on his swing this past winter. Less movement at the plate, kept his head still, which allowed him to see the ball better. Callahan went to Double-A this year, hit with impressive power. That led to a promotion to Triple-A, and then after just 39 games there, a call to the major leagues. In his first 3 games, he had a 2-run triple, a 2-run single, and a home run in Pittsburgh that jumped off his bat at 110 miles an hour. Callahan has beaten the odds just by getting to the major leagues. Now, he's making a strong case to stay.
Summer is made for road trips and lake dips. Shop at Meijer with M-Perks and fuel your summer with savings up to $1 per gallon on your next tank of gas. For nearly every dollar you spend on items like travel snacks, groceries, sunscreen, and more, you'll earn M-Perks points. The more you shop, the more your points add up, and the more you save at the pump. Turn your summertime snack cravings into fuel savings, only at Meijer. Savings per gallon based on points redeemed. Fuel rewards not valid in Wisconsin. Max 30 gallons. See mperks.com for details.
Imagine this, a day filled with indulgence, bursting with excitement, and moments that build memories to last a lifetime. A day that is unmistakably yours, at the place that is undeniably spectacular. Whether you're winning big, dining lavishly, or relaxing oh so comfortably, it's your getaway reimagined at Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
Van Andel Institute Purple Community is a grassroots fundraising network powered by the dedicated volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve human health now and in the future. When you raise funds through the Van Andel Institute Purple Community, 100% of the proceeds go directly to the Institute's research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's, as well as VAI's science education programs. Learn how you can get involved at purplecommunity.org.
All right, we are back. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard, X's and Bros. And don't forget, we will have newest Michigan State Athletic Director Dan Bartholomew.
He'll join us about 8:35 a.m. Eastern Time. Obviously, great introductory press conference. He called it the opportunity to elevate and energize a community of alumni and supporters around one of the America's greatest pastimes. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Coming off great success, there is Western Michigan Broncos Athletic Director, NCAA hockey title in 2025. Obviously, they the way the Broncos finished. I went to that game early in the year when the Broncos fell to Michigan State at Spartan Stadium, but they went on to win the Mid-American Conference football title. First time since 2016. So comes with great experience and great accolades and what he had done there for the Western Michigan Broncos, and now will be leading the charge for the Michigan State Spartans moving forward. So Dan Bartholomew, he will join us about 8:35 a.m. Eastern Time, so you want to stay tuned for that. Have gotten into quite of the college sports landscape. We talked about the AP Top 25, where your team sits. What do you think of the Spartans not getting a vote? What do you think of Michigan or University of Michigan coming in at 16? So anything on the college ranks we can talk about. Also, the NFL season was great to hear from Todd Haley, former NFL head coach. He joined us in hour one, took us around the NFL, gave his thoughts on the NFC North and the Detroit Lions, who head into preseason action week number 2 against the Washington Commanders. Joshua Dobbs will get the start at quarterback. And, of course, Laporta is going to be out a little bit with a hip injury. It's all about the starters getting healthy for week 1. So do want to hear from you. You can text Sports Radio to 21,000 or just give me a call, 866-838-4843. And Brett, on the other side of glass, I believe we do have another text. So I want to get an interesting look at the Lions' schedule as the season starts. What do you got, Brett?
Yeah, this person says that, obviously the Lions open against the Saints. Do they win that opener?
They should. I mean, let's be honest. You got a second-year quarterback in Tyler Shuck. Kellen Moore's trying to win a winning culture. They did impress towards the end part of the year. Like the last 5 games, New Orleans did play pretty good football, and that young quarterback started to look apart. They've got good receivers in Olave. But honestly, when you look at Detroit's schedule, they got New Orleans at home. That's September 13th that you're talking. They should win that game. They should win that game pretty handily, is what I would think. I like New Orleans defense, but I don't think they should be able to outscore the Lions. I don't. With a healthy Jared Goff and the weapons that they have and what the Lions have done, drafted Miller, it's a revamped offensive line, and it should be better. I don't think New Orleans can keep pace with Detroit. Then week 2 at Buffalo, that's a primetime game, 8:15. That could go either way. I think Jimmy Leonard is definitely going to help Buffalo's defense. But let's say you give the Lions a loss. It's on the road. It's against a tough AFC team in Buffalo. All right, I'll tip the cap and give Buffalo the win at that one. But then look at the next 3. The Lions have September 27th, New York Jets at home. That should be a win. That should be a win. At Carolina, October 4th. That should be a win. October 11th at Arizona. Yeah, it's on the road. It's Arizona. That could be Carson Beck, not Jacoby Brissett starting at that point at week 5. So at Arizona, I mean, Detroit legitimately for me, they should start 4-1. They should start the year 4-1, go into the bye week, be focused, and then come out of the bye, and you've got 2 division opponents at home at Ford Field, Green Bay and Minnesota, coming out of your bye week. What opportunities? I mean, could they go 6-1? They should. You got to minimum. You got to think as a player, you're going to split those division matchups. You should win at home. Well, all right, let's defer and say you take a loss on the road, but you expect yourself to win those division matchups at home. And so Minnesota, we'll see where it is. That November 1st game with Kyler Murray, do think their defense is tough, but Detroit knows how to face them, no different than they do Green Bay. Green Bay will have a different scheme defensively with Gannon coming over. Now, is Parsons back then? Is he healthy? Is he the same guy for Green Bay? But they'll be going against the 3-4 front. But minimum for me, Brett, do you think I'm talking crazy here? The Lions should be 4-1 going into their bye week.
They definitely should be. Agreed.
Yeah, and they could be able, And coming out of the bye week, they should be able to control their destiny in division with those first division games, which you would expect them. If I'm a player, I would expect to win those games at home against Green Bay and Minnesota. As they move along at Miami, that should be a win. Jeff Hafley, they got a quarterback situation down there. I'm not impressed with Willis leading the charge of the Miami Dolphins. Do think Hafley's pretty good on defense. Then they've got New England. That'll be at home. That's that's not at home. That's in Munich, Germany is where that is, where they'll be facing New England. That's November 15th. Tampa Bay will be a tough game at home. Then Chicago will be November 26th. But minimum, they should start with a fast start when you look at that schedule. That is a light schedule for me for the Detroit Lions that they need to take advantage of. Again, all those teams have losing records other than the Buffalo Bills. Like I said, Carolina, who they're facing week 4 at Carolina, they won the division of the NFC South with a losing record. It tells you how bad that division is. It's competitive, but it's a bad division because you got 3 teams that really can't compete, in my opinion, with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay just got Vita Vea re-signed. Sounds like Baker's going to wait. He's not going to negotiate during the year. I don't know why you wouldn't. I would keep it open if I were Baker, but it sounds like he wanted negotiations to shut down. But Atlanta in that division is already hurting. They've already lost their top 2 pass rushers. James Pierce is dealing with the off the field issues with the law, and of course they lost their top guy, so he's out for the year with injury. So they've lost their top 2 pass rushers. There's a team that probably should have identified. You hire a guy like a rental in Von Miller is what they're going to have to do, or try to upgrade it for their pass rush, because I don't think Penix is going to be ready early for them, and they're going to have some issues that they need to deal with Kevin Stefanski taking over as their head coach moving forward. But for the Lions, that to me is a light schedule. And I know it's pro football and anything can happen and those guys are competing, but this is the Detroit Lions now. This is a winning team that expects to win, and you should beat those bad teams. The Jets were awful. They didn't even get 1 interception last year for the Jets. So they've signed a lot of new guys. All that stuff has to gel, and what I say of creating a winning culture, and that's a lot to come together, both offensively and defensively for the Jets. Buffalo's the legitimate team. Granted, they have a new head coach in Brady taking over from McDermott. I do think that was a mistake, but their offense is still good with James Cook. They've got a good offensive line. They've got good weapons there. And Jimmy Leonard, you're going to be shocked how good he is as a defensive coordinator. I know probably fans out there of the Big Ten, when he was with the Wisconsin Badgers, then he left to go out with the Denver Broncos, now lands the DC job there for the Buffalo Bills. He will make that team better. They've always been good defensively, but they'll be more of a blitzing team with Jimmy Leonard. Typically with McDermott, they played more zone, and I doubt that they do that. They're going to go after the quarterback a lot more with Jimmy Leonard in his history. But New Orleans week 1 should be a victory. Said at Buffalo lost, but the Jets at Carolina and then at Arizona, there's no reason they shouldn't be 4-1 going into their bye week before they welcome division play coming out of their bye week with Green Bay and Minnesota. I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. I would expect that. As a player, I would expect that. I would think Dan Campbell expects that of this group. That's where they're at now. This is not, it's not like there isn't the continuity for the Lions. They've got all their coaches there now. Like I said, they got their new offensive coordinator. Did not work out well last year with Johnny Morton, Dan Campbell to take over the play calling. That's not going to be the case this year for Detroit. They've got a good offensive coordinator that was in Arizona. That's a good midline guy to protect Jared Goff. So you can text us, text Sports Radio 221,000, or call us 866-838-4843. Do want to hear your thoughts. But when we come back, we'll have the newest athletic director for the Michigan State Spartans. Dan Bartholomew is going to join us, so it's a new era. Pretty excited about it as a former Spartan. I think they got the right guy. I think they got the right guy as their head coach, and certainly think the world of Tom Izzo and what he does in Michigan State athletics. But Pat Fitzgerald and Dan Bartholomew will have forge a friendship moving forward and turn this around. So we'll be back on the Michigan Sports Network right after this.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey and the team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan, one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms. Their worldwide headquarters are in Troy, Michigan on the east side of the state, and Josh and his team connect with all the sports fans and businesses across Michigan. They bring you John Beeline on the Huge Show. They bring you Lomas Brown during the Lion season. They are a top shelf team when it comes to growth and understanding what their clients need. And mix in when we do the Beat Huge contest or the NCAA March Madness brackets. Thank you, Josh Garvey, for what you do for the Huge Show and the Michigan Sports Network. Simple and easy. Just find Dorn Mayhew on all the social networks or just Google Dorn Mayhew and find out how they can help your business. And again, a special thanks to Josh Garvey and the Dorn Mayhew team in West Michigan.
You can't get enough Lions talk. X's and Bros gets that and wants to deliver.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about!
Every Tuesday at 8:35, we talk with Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder.
In trouble and dumped. Jimmy Rolder had the fumble recovery on the first possession. He'll have a sack here.
What's the mood of the team? What's the challenge with the next opponent? And what's his rookie year taught him?
Interception! This time it's Jimmy Rolder!
Lions linebacker Jimmy Rolder every Tuesday morning on X's and Bros, brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
All right, we are back. X's and Bros. Jim Miller filling in for Matt Shepard, and mentioned exciting times in the Big Ten. Not only atop of the AP polls, but you've got a couple of new coaches in the Big Ten, and you look at these, these big 5 conferences and how the landscape of football, not only or college basketball and football, has changed over the past few seasons, but exciting times for Michigan State and University of Michigan, because Michigan State had their introductory press conference on Wednesday. Dan Bartholomew will take over as the 22nd athletic director in Michigan State history. Had his lovely family there as well. Had a jersey with number 22 with his name on it as well. And with that said, we are going to go out to the guest line, talk about exciting times for the Michigan State Spartans. So we welcome in their newest athletic director, Dan Bartholomew, to X's and Bros. So Dan, Jim Miller, good to have you. Thanks for taking a few moments of your day, and congratulations.
Jim Miller, man, this is an honor. I feel like I'm in the presence of a celebrity. Let's go. I'm excited.
Well, thank you for the kind words, but I could say the same thing for yourself. Obviously, coming off tremendous success for the Western Michigan Broncos, and really, what a year last year. What you did with the NCAA hockey title. I think it's 60 years since that happened. They win the Mid-American Conference a football title as well. That hasn't happened since 2016. And just talk about that stepping stone as a Western Michigan Bronco and how you find yourself as the new Michigan State athletic director.
Yeah, I cherish my time at Western Michigan. We had really special people. It's a really special place, special community support, and so it wasn't just me. I was surrounded by awesome people and awesome coaches. But the good thing about my time here was, we all set out to create a vision 5 years ago, and the vision was championships, right? Like I inherited a bunch of staff and inherited a community that there had been some bright spots here and there, but everybody was kind of sick of being mediocre. And so we sort of got in a room and wrote down a plan to be championship caliber. And I had great coaches like Pat Ferschweiler and Lance Taylor, obviously in hockey and football, who believed in it. And then it was about going out and finding the resources to support it. And we got there, and we were sure as heck really proud and celebrated like crazy when we did. And honestly, I see a lot of the same in Michigan State, right? This is a place with unbelievable foundation, unbelievable people, right? Everything is there for us to be great. I just think we need to pull it all together and say, let's do it. And so the sky's the limit for the Spartans, and I'm excited to get on board.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, it's good to have you, and it excites me as a former Spartan, Dan, because the vision stays the same. Like you said, to build that championship caliber program, which is what I know you're excited to do. And you touched on it in the press conference. This is different times. It's not like when I played. I saw what happened yesterday with the restraining order. They're going to allow players who are on the NFL teams to return to college football rosters. So there's a whole new element that I never thought I'd see happen. And how do you navigate all the challenges that you have as an athletic director in these modern times?
Yeah, and there's chaos, and hopefully we get all that sorted out soon. But I think you stay grounded in your vision, right? I think you create a vision, you create a mission for the department, and we'll work on those things. And in a lot of ways, we started on that already this week before I even had my first day. But we'll define what our vision is going to be, and we'll stay grounded in that. And things will change, right? And things will change around that vision. But as long as we all agree, the coaches and the staff and our supporters agree that vision is what we want to pursue, then you tune out the noise, you navigate and adapt, you keep your knees bent, you leverage what's changed to your benefit, right? There is a transactional component to recruitment and retention, and we need to be great at that, and we will be. But there's more to it than that, right? And so you think about that vision, where that'll start. It'll start with the student athlete, and it did at Western Michigan, and it will at Michigan State, and kind of by the time I left Western Michigan, you talk about navigating and adapting. My philosophy had changed a little bit. It was always, we're going to have you here for 5 years, and we're going to create a great experience for you, and you're going to be ready to pursue your passions in life when you're done. And that really evolved to like, hey, whether you're here 1 year or 5 years, and there's going to be a little bit of both, and that's okay. We want you leaving saying this was your place, right? Michigan State was my place. We had athletes that left Western Michigan, went to a bigger school, but now still call Western Michigan, still donate to Western Michigan, right? We had athletes that came in, only spent 1 year with us, and we're standing on a championship podium saying, hey man, I wish I would have come here from the start, right? And so that's the experience we have to create for the Michigan State Spartans. And again, there's a transactional component to it. It's not the only component, Jim. I promise you that.
Yeah. Well, it gets me excited, Dan. It really does, because it could have been very easy for you to stay at Western Michigan. They had, redone your contract, but you have taken on this challenge, and that really excites me. And so much in this business is being able to work with people, and as you develop these relationships, whether it's with Pat Fitzgerald, don't know if you have met or have a background and come across his path before, but as he moves forward as the Michigan State head coach, or Tom Izzo and the other great sports programs by all these coaches that do a great job. They put in a lot of time, and you said it's a lot about the student athletes and who's recruited there, and maybe just touch on that, forging these relationships, because that's a big part of it. It really is to have that success.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with connection, and you can tell at Michigan State, I mean, connection is going to win you a lot of games, right? There are a lot of great people, and you name two of them, who love that place. And Tom obviously was put his heart and soul into it for decades. And Pat, who's new like me, but is already feeling it, right? And so let's just start with those two people. You want to talk about some of the best people you could ever hope to work with. I mean, I literally, Pat and I addressed a group of donors yesterday, and Pat went first, right? And then he handed the mic off to me, and it came out of nowhere. Like, I just looked at the crowd and I'm like, I get to work with Pat Fitzgerald, you guys. Like, this is crazy. Starting with Tom, when I got my job at Western Michigan in 2022, I'd come from Oregon State, right? I'd come from all the way across the country. I didn't know anybody in the state of Michigan. In the first 3 months on the job, I got a call from a 517 number. I picked it up. I'm like, I probably should pick this up. It was Tom Izzo, who was calling me just to get to know me, wants the best for the state, wanted to support me and wanted to know how he could help me, right? So just think about that for a second. You got Tom Izzo, legendary Hall of Fame coach at Michigan State, calling the new athletic director at Western Michigan to form a relationship and say, hey, I want to help you, right? And then Pat Fitzgerald. So 2016, I was at the University of Pittsburgh. I was a young pup in the industry, and our athletic director at the time had just left to go to Oregon State, and I literally found out on the charter flight that I was going to be the acting athletic director at the bowl game. And as you know, Jim, there's all kinds of dignitary events and all those kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
If you're the AD at the bowl game, you got to go. You got to bring your wife and kid. My kids are tiny at that point; they're babies. And we were playing Northwestern, and Pat Fitzgerald and his family, I had, Pat was built for that moment. I had no business being there. Pat Fitzgerald and his family were so warm to us, and so great. We were all these, fancy events, and he made it feel comfortable, and that's just the kind of person he is. I actually still have a picture of him and I ringing the New York Stock Exchange bell at the Pinstripe Bowl. So, that just gives you an idea whether whether they've been there for decades or they're new people. Like, those are the kind of people that are drawn to Michigan State University. And that's why I spent my first 48 hours on campus. I mean, I don't start until the 31st, but I went up there Monday night, a couple days ahead of the press conference, because I wanted to start forming connections with those people. And so that's what I did the last 3 days. It was long, it was tiring, but boy, I learned a lot, and there's great people in East Lansing.
Yeah, that's a great story, and thanks for sharing. Well, you talked about the challenges of the landscape, and for the listeners out there, and it affects all sports now. Who was it? It was Texas Tech. They had those hedge fund guys who are techie guys.
Yeah.
They brought in a bunch of money, and they ended up stealing, I think it was Stanford's starting pitcher for women's softball. And Texas Tech was raiding all these other rosters, and it affects all sports. It's not just basketball. It's not just football, but do you see it settling down? It's still, everybody calls it the Wild Wild West. And I mentioned the lawsuit or the restraining order that the legal system came down yesterday, and there's always just something new. Is it eventually gonna calm itself? Is it simmering a little bit?
I think some of what we're defining as chaos right now will. There's obviously an act in Congress that I believe will be looked at in September that will at least help address some of what we're currently defining as chaos. But Jim, let's be honest, right? I started in this business in 2002. Okay, it looked a lot different by 2007, and then it looked a lot different by 2012, right? So I think if you get into a mindset of comfort, and okay, now this is going to stay the same and we can move forward, I don't think you're going to set yourself up to succeed. So yes, do I think that the dollars and the transfer portal, and some of these issues that are creating chaos right now. Do I think those will get sorted out in some way, shape, or form? I do. It may take a few years, but listen, there'll be new elements of chaos, and that's why you need great leaders and great people to try to stay ahead of it, and that'll certainly be part of our plan at Michigan State.
Yeah, certainly adapt and adjust, and that's part of it too. And what you got to do. What do you see as the biggest challenges early? I mean, certainly you're getting to know the university president and all these new faces, but what comes across your desk early now for the early challenges that you foresee, Dan?
Well, I probably don't know yet, Jim. They don't tell you those things in the first 48 hours. So my guess is I'll find out on the 31st. But in terms of what do I see as a challenge, or I guess an opportunity, or something I'm looking to do right away? It's connecting with people immediately, and there's ways to do that in person. I mean, there's kind of an art and a science to that, because you want to get in front of people. You want that natural and human connection, but you also need data. You know what I mean? So there's ways to do that I'm already starting to work on, where we can get a lot of great information that we can utilize to build on moving forward. We've got really this exciting new sort of organizational structure with Spartan Ventures. That's give Jay back credit, and John Palumbo, who's still there, for setting that thing up. I mean, you need to live in a world where you're a little bit more nimble than university systems allow you to be. You need to be a little bit more creative with your funding and how you strategize your funding and how you utilize it to sustain a long-term vision. Spartan Ventures does that. So, we need to finish that. We need to finish that strong. And then we need to do a really great job of explaining that to people. And so that's something that I'll be working on. And then honestly, Jim, we will lead with vision, right? We will lead with who we want to be at Michigan State. And so that's what you'll hear me talking about, but we need resources to support that vision, right? So we got to get that vision in place, because then I got to get out on the road and we got to fundraise. And I'm not a person who fundraises by going out and telling people we need money. Like, everybody knows we need money. That's not inspiring to tell people you need money. So we need to create the inspiring story, and then we need to leverage that to get people on board and to invest in what we're doing.
And you certainly have a great fan base to do it. Maybe early impressions of Michigan State alumni, the fan base. I know your history with the Pitt Panthers. I'm still good friends with Pat Narduzzi. You spent a good time at Michigan State. Yeah, Pat's great. He's wonderful. And your time at Oregon State or even Western Michigan, what are your early impressions of the Michigan State fan base and alumni?
Yeah, passionate, rabid, supportive. They've been through a lot, and when you have a fan base who's as supportive of this as this fan base is, considering that, hey, it's been a while since you've had sustained success in football, man, you can work with that. And then I would just say warm and welcoming. My wife said it last night when I got home. Michigan State is big, right? Like, you saw that press conference. I mean, my family's eyes were wide open, and it was like, whoa, like, this is big. But you don't feel that way when you talk to the people, right? When you talk to the people, you're talking to down to earth, great Midwest human beings. And so that's sort of like an interesting dichotomy where it's like, oh my God, like, you're in the big time, but nobody takes themselves too seriously. And that's a really, really great fit for me, because I'm somebody who I'm a Pittsburgh guy, Jim, and all about that town. So I just want to roll up my sleeves, get to work, and treat people well.
That I did love that, spending time with the Steelers. It is good down home community, family, like you're talking about. And I felt that way at Michigan State. And one of the reasons why I went there, and this is coming from a guy whose older brother and sister went to the school down the road, U of M. But that's the atmosphere I felt, that you felt, Dan, when I arrived at Michigan State.
Yeah, and that's what separates us. And I said that in the press conference, right? I mean, that mentality separates us in this state. And I said it during my interview, like, we can beat you, right? We can beat you, and then we can pick you up and shake your hand and thank you for coming. And that's who I want to be. I want to beat you. Trust me. I want to beat you. But I want people to say, like, man, Michigan State events are fun. They're energizing. And I got treated really, really well while I was there.
Well, you've treated us very well. Nothing but success. Your time in East Lansing, I think the fan base is loving it. I think they made the right choice in you landing there, and hopefully the best is yet to come for Michigan State. So, Dan, thanks for taking a few moments of your day and joining us this morning.
Thanks, Jim. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
All right. Dan Bartholomew, everybody, newest athletic director for the Michigan State Spartans. Do you feel the energy? Yeah, I think he can feel the energy. I think he's the right fit, and he knows what to do coming off really high successes for the Western Michigan Broncos. Like I said, they haven't won the national NCAA hockey title. I think it was 60 years was the stat, but had a great 2025, finished well there. Obviously, the Mid-American Conference football title, they haven't won that since 2016. So Dan Bartholomew comes with really a great resume and a track record to boot. And I think as Michigan State Spartan fans, really excited of what can be done here in the future. And as I mentioned, I think the best is yet to come. You'd have to go back to Mark Hollis. Even when I was at Michigan State, there's obviously a lot of politics in all these institutions. You got the board of directors and the trustees and all that are a big part of it. And there's a lot of politics. And that's why I mentioned when Rich Rodriguez arrived for University of Michigan, or even for Michigan State, when John L. Smith was hired as the head coach for football from Louisville, they were kind of out of sorts. They weren't used to being a part of the politics of it, and it is a part of it. But you have to be able to work together. I go back to even my days at Michigan State with Coach Perlis, and if you remember Marilyn Dean Baker, there was a big battle there, and George became not only the head coach but the athletic director as well. And it was, there was a lot in the news more off the field than what was going on the field was the emphasis, and for some coaches it's too much, and why they can't deal with it. But if you can work with one another, you can have tremendous success, and that's what it sounds like Dan Bartholomew wants to do. It's, you don't have to like everybody, but you've got to be able to work with one another to have success. And I think that's what's going to happen at Michigan State. I like the direction that they're about to go in, and as I said, hopefully the best is yet to come. Do have a tough schedule. I do think when you look at Pat Fitzgerald, it gets a little bit more. I don't think the expectations are as high for the Spartans and what is, for all the reasons I mentioned, for the University of Michigan Wolverines. I think they got the talent there. They've got the young quarterback, and it's about building that championship culture when you look at Pat Fitzgerald. And I think we already know Tom Izzo has already done that, and that's true for all sports there at Michigan State. And I think they will have tremendous success moving forward with the hiring of Dan Bartholomew as their newest athletic director. Certainly will be challenges. Like you said, the college landscape is moving so fast. You have to be like a coach, adaptable, adjustable, and it's on a moment's notice. You can read the tea leaves a little bit of how they're starting to structure college football and the athletics and the direction it's going in, because I think you see a lot of teams now kind of creating the model of what the NFL is, where they hire a GM. They've got the scouting staffs for both high school and the portal. They got to keep their window on, and obviously the money. The money has become a big part of it, and that's why in the NFL you have a salary cap. And I do think at some point there will be a salary cap, and now the athletic directors, the coaches will know where they need to spend their money moving forward to have the most success that they had. So it will be kind of an NFL model and how it's structured. Well, I had a great time this morning spending it with you on X's and Bros. Don't forget, Matt Shepard will be back Monday. And I hope you have just a great weekend, the rest of the weekend. It's going to be a lot of sports with the preseason continuing on. I think there's like 14 games on Sunday. I'll be a part of one Saturday, as I'll call the Chicago Bears versus the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. But it'll be great as the preseason winds down and the college football season starts to crank up. So thanks to all our guests. Todd Haley, former NFL head coach, joined us on the program. And really a great thank you to Dan Bartholomew, who takes over as the newest athletic director. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. This is Jim Miller for the Michigan Sports Network.
In my pro football days, the key to winning was a great game plan. It's no different when it comes to your retirement. Hi, this is Mitch Lyons from Mitch Lyons Wealth. Is stock market turbulence making you question whether your plan is okay? Do the ups and downs of your retirement account give you the jitters? Are you protected against the next market downdraft? As you approach retirement, you're entering the retirement red zone. Like in football, the game changes in the red zone. There's less time for mistakes, and you need to see your blind spots and protect yourself. Is your retirement safe? Let's find out today. Let's create a game plan together that will protect, grow, and win retirement. You've worked hard to save what you have. Let's make sure you keep it. 30 to 40 years of saving for retirement is worth a 15-minute call to make sure you've done all that you can to protect your retirement. Call Mitch Lyons Wealth today at 844-867-8335. That's 844-867-8335. Or go to MitchLyonsWealth.com. Investment advisory services are offered through MLW Advisory Services, DBA Mitch Lyons Wealth, a state-registered investment advisor.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools